Hey everyone, we've updated our channel name from Chinese Novel Audio Wave to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Nothing else will be changing. We're still uploading a new video every day, bringing you the best Chinese novel audiobooks. Let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1126, The Disappearance of Gai Sect. Hearing Pei Shuhua's request, Lu Chen chuckled. She had just offered to practice with his main body. It's not his fault. Now that it has begun, how can it end here? While Lu Chen was doing things, he said, "No, now is a good time for you to break through. I'll help you break through later." Taiwan Novel Network. Hearing this, Pei Shuhua almost turned her eyes white, and Lu Chen also began to strengthen Pei Shuhua. Both parties are great emperors, and Lu Chen's movements are neither light nor heavy. The soft couch was originally made of immortal gold, but not only the cushions on the surface were dented, but also the bedboard made of immortal gold was dented. Pei Shuhua's whole body's spiritual energy gathered at the point of contact with Lu Chen. Whenever Lu Chen circulated the spiritual energy in his body, or his body made some movements, all the spiritual energy in his body would be affected together. General, what are you doing? Correct, U003 aversion hash is first posted on 69 bookbar. This edition equals Xiao Carat Shuo. After all, they are all great emperors. Let alone 100 years of retreat together, even if they are in retreat together for 1,000 or 10,000 years, it will be no problem. The Thunder Emperor glanced at the Quasi-Emperor in front of him. The arcs on his body kept jumping, as if threatening the Quasi-Emperor. Of course, now that the great catastrophe of the era is approaching, it is impossible for the two of them to be in seclusion together for 10,000 years, but there is still no problem in being in seclusion together for several decades. The Thunder Emperor snorted coldly and said, "Your Majesty has ordered that the Gai sect will betray the Shenyu Dynasty. From now on, there will be no Gai sect in the world." Pei Shuhua suddenly regretted what she was doing so impulsively. If she had known better, she should have asked Lu Chen's confidence about Lu Chen. Although the Gai Church has a long history, there has never been a strong person in the Gai Church. The Thunder Emperor thought that the Gai sect ignored Liu Yanghua because the Gai sect was not afraid of Liu Yanghua at all, so he did not send anyone to express allegiance to Liu Yanghua. The Thunder Emperor was stunned for a moment. Back when Emperor Shenwu wanted to return the saints to the Oneness sect, the Reunion sect had to obediently hand them over. Now that he is the new emperor, the Reunion sect dares to ignore him like this. It is really a desperate act. What is the United Church doing? Do you want to rebel? Liu Yanghua sneered and said, "It seems that there are still people in the Shenyu Dynasty who are dissatisfied with me." When the spiritual power in Pei Shuhua's body is affected by Lu Chen, Pei Shuhua's entire soul will feel a pull and a numb feeling. Hearing this, the Quasi-Emperor's face suddenly turned pale, and he quickly said, "General, before you came, there was no one on the main star of the Gai sect. Could it be that the Gai Church had sensed that this day would come in advance, so they simply escaped from the Shenyu Dynasty? But if such a large Gai sect wanted to leave the Shenyu Dynasty, it was impossible for Liu Yanghua not to notice it at all, right?" When Lu Chen was practicing dual cultivation with Pei Shuhua, the Shenyu Dynasty had also assembled a large number of troops. In addition to the Shenyu Dynasty's Shenlong army, the major forces within the Shenyu Dynasty also sent countless strong men and women from the Shenyu Dynasty. The troops marched together. Then I used my spiritual consciousness to explore the entire main star, and found that there was really no one on the main star of Gai sect. The Thunder Emperor couldn't believe it. Liu Yanghua is now the head of the dynasty after all, and controls the entire Shenyu Dynasty. Logically speaking, Liu Yanghua should know everything that happens in the Shenyu Dynasty. She chose the strongest main body as soon as she came up. This main body was not something she could resist at all. Pei Shuhua was on the verge of crying and could only try to use the power of the avenue to try to break through the realm as soon as possible. Lu Chen has many women, and every one of them is as beautiful as a fairy, but even so, every time he practices with a new woman, he will have a different feeling. Seeing Lu Chen working so hard, Pei Shuhua felt miserable. The man she wanted to protect was so cruel, and she would suffer a lot from now on. The Thunder Emperor stood in the void and loudly transmitted a message to the main star of the Gai sect. The leader of the Gai sect, come out immediately. Pei Shuhua felt very scared at the thought of being played by Lu Chen for decades to come. After Lu Yanghua finished speaking, the army led by Thunder Emperor went to Gai sect. No one left. Are you kidding me? The Thunder Emperor ignored the Quasi-Emperor and flew directly outside the main star of Lei Gai sect. Lu Chen didn't pay attention to what Pei Shuhua was thinking. He knew very well that for the Emperor, the other party could still withstand his actions. Lu Yanghua didn't take the Gai sect seriously at all. In his opinion, the Gai sect could be destroyed with just one hand. Practicing with Pei Shuhua at this moment gave him a different feeling, which also made him work harder to help Pei Shuhua break through as soon as possible. But at this moment, Shadow Sha suddenly appeared next to Lu Yanghua, and Lu Yanghua asked, "What's the matter?" After the words fell, there was no movement in the entire star field. At this time, a Quasi-Emperor came to the Thunder Emperor in a panic. Not only that, the Gai sect didn't even send anyone to attend his enthronement ceremony. Now that the Shenyu dynasty's army was about to go out, the Gai sect didn't even respond to the call, not to mention sending strong people, not even a single person. It turned out that the real reason was that the Gai church ran away. Shadow Sha said, "Your Majesty, the Gai sect did not send anyone. If the realm does not break through, I am afraid that with the strength of Emperor Lu Chen, it will not be a problem for the two of them to practice in seclusion together for 100 years. Lu Yanghua stood in the palace in the sky, looking at the rows of giant immortal boats in the void. At this moment, he truly felt the taste of controlling everything. Soon, the Shenlong army led by Emperor Lei Ting came to the star field ruled by Gai sect. For a time, the entire star field was surrounded by the immortal boats of the Shenlong army. In this case, don't blame me. Pass it down now. When the army sets out, go to Gai sect first. As for whether Pei Shuhua will be implicated and pregnant with his child, Lu Chen no longer expects these. Over the years, he and his wives and concubines have practiced dual cultivation together so many times, and none of them have been pregnant." Hearing this, Lu Yanghua's face darkened instantly. After he issued an order to attack the Tianqian world, various forces in the Shenyu dynasty quickly sent people to express their support, but Gai sect did not express anything at all. Although Gai sect is not a superpower, its strength within the Shenyu dynasty is still very strong. Only the original Emperor Shenwu could suppress Gai sect. If Lu Yanghua knew that Gai sect had fled, he would not have sent him to attack Gai sect. Thinking of this, Emperor Lei Ting said to the soldiers of the Shenlong army, "Search the entire star field, and report immediately if you find any trace of Gai sect." Then the soldiers of the Shenyu dynasty began to search the entire star field. As a result, the army searched for more than 10 days and did not find a single disciple of Gai sect. Even on the main star of Gai sect, no trace of the existence of Gai sect was found. Gai sect really seemed to have disappeared suddenly. Emperor Lei Ting did not understand what was going on. Anyway, it had nothing to do with him, so he did not continue to investigate and sent people back to report. End of this chapter. Chapter 11:27. Tell me about the situation of the Great Xia Dynasty. Shenyu Dynasty, the palace in the sky. The blood energy on Lu Yanghua's body was released, and the surrounding time and space were distorted by the thick blood energy. At this moment, his face was gloomy and extremely angry. "What, you said that the Unionist Church disappeared out of thin air?" Search Tuacan on Google. The Gai sect was nothing more than an ant to Lu Yanghua, but the force he wanted to destroy actually disappeared, which made him feel more or less uncomfortable. The key is that the Gai sect disappeared within the Shenyu dynasty. Now the entire Shenyu dynasty is under his control. As a result, the Gai sect has completely disappeared, but he did not notice it at all. This gave Lu Yanghua a strong sense of crisis. He didn't even know that such a large force suddenly disappeared. If something happened in the future that could threaten his life, he didn't know that it would be troublesome. How on earth did the Gai church disappear under your nose? Lu Yanghua then said coldly, "Check, immediately find out for me the whereabouts of the Gai sect and how they escaped from the Shenyu dynasty." If he couldn't find out how the Gai sect disappeared, Liu Yanghua would have trouble sleeping and eating. Soon, the entire Xia dynasty began to investigate the whereabouts of the Gai sect disciples. A few months passed in the blink of an eye, and the Xia dynasty did not find out where the Gai church had gone. At the same time, Great Xia Dynasty, Fengyang Star Territory. Zhang Qingfeng fell into silence when he saw more than 100 giant immortal boats approaching in front of him. These immortal boats did not look like they were coming to attack them. After they arrived at Fengyang Star Territory, they had been parked outside, and no one took the initiative to break the restrictions. Zhang Qingfeng came to the blue interface created by the fairy umbrella, looked at the ferry boats in the star field outside and asked, "Who are you?" At this time, old men with gray beards appeared out of thin air in front of the barrier. The old man was wearing a white Taoist robe. His hair was gray, but he still had the spirit of an immortal. He looked kind and kind. The old man said politely, "We are members of the Gai sect, and we came here specifically to seek refuge with the Great Xia Dynasty. We, the saints, are Taoist companions of the Lord of the Great Xia Dynasty." After hearing these words, especially the last words of Emperor Danyang, Zhang Qingfeng reacted instantly, and his expression became much kinder. "It turns out that you are all members of the Gai sect. His Majesty has already known about your arrival. You just need to wait for His Majesty to open the barrier." After Lu Chen learned from Chu Yunji that the Gai sect was going to join the Great Xia Dynasty, he sent a message to Zhang Qingfeng and asked Zhang Qingfeng to pay attention to the Gai sect members. Of course, as the real head of the Great Xia Dynasty, Lu Chen already knew everything that happened here. At this time, the Yancheng Imperial Palace in Tianshan World. Emperor Lu Chen's clone gasped and said to Chu Yunji, "Huh, they are here, how are you going to arrange them?" Hearing Lu Chen's sudden words, Chu Yunji immediately realized who they were that Lu Chen was talking about. Just as Chu Yunji was about to say something, Lu Chen's movements suddenly became fierce. "Hey," Lu Chen continued, "how about I give them, a star field?" Chu Yunji snorted and said directly, "Okay." Now Lu Chen is everything to her, and whatever Lu Chen says is whatever she says. Although Gai sect was founded by her, she and everyone belong to Lu Chen, so Gai sect naturally also belongs to Lu Chen, and Lu Chen can arrange whatever he wants. The next moment, a saint clone of Lu Chen appeared in front of Zhang Qingfeng. Seeing the sudden appearance of Lu Chen, Emperor Danyang, the leader of the Gai sect, immediately saluted, "Greetings, Your Majesty." The next moment, everyone in Gai sect saluted Lu Chen, "Greetings, Your Majesty." Lu Chen said with a smile, "Do you know me?" Emperor Danyang said, "When I sent the saint to the Shenyu Palace, I met you once." Lu Chen laughed and glanced at Emperor Danyang. "Oh, you were the one who personally sent Yunji to the Shenyu Palace." Emperor Danyang heard that Lu Chen's tone was a little unhappy, and immediately said, "Everything is the meaning of the saint, or to be precise, it is the meaning of the ancestor. Chu Yunji is a saint of the Gai sect and the ancestor of the Gai sect. Of course Emperor Danyang will listen to the ancestor's words." Lu Chen was too lazy to continue to pursue Emperor Danyang's responsibility. He directly controlled the immortal umbrella and opened a hole in the barrier. "Come in, I have prepared a star field for you. From now on, the Gaidong star field will be run by your Gai sect." Quote. Emperor Danyang saluted again and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." The elders and disciples of the Gai sect also saluted in unison and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Immediately afterwards, Gai sect's immortal boats slowly flew into the barrier. Just as the Gai sect's ferry boats entered the barrier, a dozen more ferry boats suddenly appeared in the distance. However, compared to the Gai sect's ferry boats, those ferry boats were obviously more worn out and smaller in size. Lu Chen looked at the ferry boat in the distance and asked, "Is that also the ferry boat of your Gai sect?" The error-free version is being read. First release of this novel. Emperor Danyang replied, "Your Majesty, our immortal boats have all entered the barrier. Those immortal boats are not the immortal boats of the Gai sect." Lu Chen closed the barrier without hesitation, but he didn't leave just yet. He wanted to see who were the people coming now. Soon, the dozen immortal boats also flew to the interface. At this time, a man in red brocade clothing stood on the deck of the leading ferry boat. After discovering hundreds of ferry boats parked in front of him, the man quickly stopped their ferry boats. The next moment, the man flew to the front of the barrier. He looked at Lu Chen, then at the hundreds of giant immortal boats of the Gai sect behind him, and his face was instantly covered with sweat. Zhang Qingfeng asked, "Who are you and what are you doing in the Great Xia Dynasty?" Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu swallowed his saliva. "I am Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu of the Yangon Dynasty. I wonder if I can meet the Emperor of the Great Xia Dynasty." Lu Chen looked at Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu and asked, "I am the Emperor of the Great Xia Dynasty. If you have anything to say, just say it directly." Hearing this, Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu was stunned for a moment, and a trace of doubt flashed across his face. The Emperor of the Great Xia Dynasty is a saint. No, it should be just an avatar. Thinking of this, the Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu said respectfully, "I come on behalf of the Yangon Dynasty and the Emperor Yangon." Lu Chen continued to ask, "Yangon Dynasty? I don't remember when the Great Xia Dynasty had any intersection with your Yangon Dynasty." Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu said, "I wonder if you know the current situation of the Great Xia Dynasty." Lu Chen asked back, "Oh, can you tell me what the situation of the Great Xia Dynasty is?" Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu said, "Perhaps your Majesty doesn't know that the Emperor of the Shenyu Dynasty has decided to attack the Great Xia Dynasty. It won't be long before the army of the Shenyu Dynasty will arrive at the Fengyang Star region. By then, the entire Great Xia Dynasty will be a river of blood and no longer exist." Hearing this, Lu Chen smiled and asked, "So it's this matter, but then again, what does this have to do with your Yangon Dynasty?" Lu Chen now remembered where the Yangon Dynasty was. The ruling area of the Yangon Dynasty was located on the road that the Shenyu Dynasty had to take to attack the Great Xia Dynasty. Chapter 1128. Do you mean to hand me over? Lu Chen had roughly guessed why the Yangon Dynasty sent people. At this time, the Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu continued, "If the Shenyu Dynasty wants to attack the Xia Dynasty, it will not just attack the Xia Dynasty. Wherever the Shenyu Dynasty army passes, there will be disasters. All dynasties on the road of their army will be destroyed by the Shenyu army." When the Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu said this, he paused for a moment and looked at Lu Chen's reaction. Seeing Lu Chen's thoughtful expression, the Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu continued cautiously, "So, what Our Majesty means is that the target of the Shenyu Dynasty is the prince of the Shenyu Dynasty. If the Xia Dynasty can hand over the prince." When he said this, the Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu paused again and looked at Lu Chen's reaction again. As a result, he found that Lu Chen was actually smiling. The Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu felt very bad. Now few people in the universe know that the 9th prince of the Shenyu Dynasty is the Lord of Xia. Therefore, in the eyes of some dynasties, the so-called 9th prince was just hiding in the Great Xia Dynasty and relying on the protection of the Great Xia Dynasty. As long as the Great Xia Dynasty could hand over the 9th prince, the army of the Shenyu Dynasty would not have to make a personal trip, and the star fields along the way would not have to suffer because of the 9th prince of the Shenyu Dynasty. Of course, this was their wishful thinking. Even without Lu Chen, Lu Yingwe would have started a war. It was just a matter of time. Lu Chen said directly, "I am the 9th prince of the Shenyu Dynasty. Do you mean to hand me over?" The Yin Yu Quasi-Emperor was shocked. "It's over." He bumped into the real boss. Didn't the intelligence say that the 9th prince of the Shenyu Dynasty had the cultivation of a saint at most? Thinking of this, the Yin Yu Quasi-Emperor looked at Lu Chen again. The man in front of him was indeed only a saint. But the other party could become the lord of a dynasty. How could he be just a saint? The Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu said hurriedly, "I still need to report this matter to Our Majesty. I will not bother you anymore." Speaking of this, the Quasi-Emperor Yin Yu took the dozen immortal boats behind him and left. When they left, they looked particularly embarrassed, and they were completely in a state of running for their lives. Seeing their backs going away, the Emperor Danyang said on the side, "Your Majesty, that person just offended you. Why don't you let me clean them all up?" Lu Chen said lightly, "No need, let them pass the message back." Lu Chen has guessed what those dynasties will do next. It is nothing more than attacking the Great Xia Dynasty in advance when the army of the Shenyu Dynasty arrives, and then sending him to the Shenyu Dynasty to prevent the Shenyu Dynasty from sending troops to them. The idea is not bad. Then it depends on whether they have the strength to conquer the Great Xia Dynasty in advance when the army of the Shenyu Dynasty arrives at their dynasty. Lu Chen turned his head to look at Emperor Danyang, and then said to Zhang Qingfeng, "Take Gai sect to the Lonely Star region." Zhang Qingfeng saluted and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." After the voice fell, Lu Chen disappeared on the spot, and Emperor Danyang led the people of Gai sect to salute the void. "Farewell, Your Majesty." Then Zhang Qingfeng led Gai sect to the Lonely Star region. Along the way, Emperor Danyang was trying to find out about Chu Yunji. After all, Chu Yunji was the ancestor of Gai sect. The higher her status in front of Lu Chen, the higher the status of their Gai sect in the Great Xia Dynasty. Emperor Danyang smiled and asked politely, "What is your name?" Zhang Qingfeng hurriedly said, "My name is Zhang Qingfeng, Senior, just call me Xiaozhang." Although Zhang Qingfeng didn't know much about Gai sect, the one who could make Emperor Sha Tian personally come out to receive it must not be an ordinary force. Moreover, there are so many immortal boats behind the Gai sect, and he sensed the aura of more than one emperor. The overall strength of the Gai sect is likely to be similar to that of the Great Xia Dynasty. In front of the leader of the Gai sect, Zhang Qingfeng naturally has to lower his posture. Emperor Danyang did not really call Zhang Qingfeng Xiaozhang. After all, Zhang Qingfeng is a quasi-emperor, and calling him Xiaozhang is somewhat inappropriate. Emperor Danyang then said, "Qingfeng, I wonder if you have heard of Chu Yunji." Hearing this, Zhang Qingfeng immediately said, "Are you talking about concubine Chu? I have heard of her." Hearing the word, concubine, Emperor Danyang was slightly stunned. Just a concubine? Shouldn't it be the queen? It seems that their ancestor does not have a high status in front of Lu Chen. Emperor Danyang continued to ask, "I wonder how Your Majesty feels about concubine Chu." Zhang Qingfeng looked at Emperor Danyang suspiciously, and then asked, "Why do you want to know about this, Senior?" Emperor Danyang said, "Concubine Chu is the ancestor of our Gai sect. After reincarnation, she became the saint of our Gai sect. Naturally, I care about her affairs." Zhang Qingfeng said, "I see. Senior, don't worry. All your women are very affectionate with Your Majesty. And Your Majesty has many avatars, and Your Majesty's wives and concubines will not compete for favor. Your Majesty's harem is very harmonious." The correct version is being read. The first release of this novel. Emperor Danyang continued to ask, "I wonder what realm the queen of the Great Xia Dynasty is." Zhang Qingfeng replied, "Senior, you should be asking about the Queen Mother, right?" Emperor Danyang asked doubtfully, "Queen Mother?" Zhang Qingfeng said, "Now the Emperor of the Great Xia Dynasty is openly Your Majesty's eldest son, and Sha Tiandi is now the Emperor, but as the founder of the Great Xia Dynasty, the fate of the dynasty is still controlled by Your Majesty Tiandi." Emperor Danyang immediately understood, "So that's the case, what realm is the Queen Mother in?" Zhang Qingfeng saw through Emperor Danyang's thoughts at a glance, and then he said, "In order to avoid power struggles in the harem, Your Majesty Tiandi abolished the position of queen. Now Your Majesty's harem only has concubines and imperial concubines." Speaking of this, Zhang Qingfeng reminded, "Senior, what Your Majesty Tiandi hates most is someone interfering with the throne." Hearing this, Emperor Danyang smiled, "I'm just asking casually." Emperor Danyang didn't care too much whether Chu Yunji was the queen. He cared about whether the person in charge of Lu Chen's harem would cause trouble for Chu Yunji. Since Chu Yunji's status in Lu Chen's harem was not low, he had nothing to worry about. The magnificent hall was silent. The images of the great emperors were in the middle of the hall, watching the projection screen played by the image stone in the hall. The screen was the scene of the communication between the quasi-emperor Yinyu and Lu Chen in the void. After watching the whole communication process between Lu Chen and quasi-emperor Yinyu, a great emperor frowned and said, "This is troublesome. I didn't expect that the lord of the dynasty of Daxia is actually the 9th prince of the Shenyu dynasty." Their original idea was to force the Xia Dynasty to hand over the 9th prince of the Yu Dynasty, and then the Yu Dynasty would not come to attack them. If the people were handed over, the Yu Dynasty would naturally have no need to send a large army to a remote place like theirs. They thought that if the 10 dynasties joined forces, they would definitely scare the Xia Dynasty. But if the lord of the dynasty of the Xia Dynasty was Lu Chen, that would be another matter. Lu Chen must know that the Yu Dynasty wanted to kill him, so he would definitely resist stubbornly. At this time, Emperor Yangon of the Yangon dynasty snorted coldly and said, "Since he is the ruler of the dynasty, there is nothing to say. Let's start the war." End of this chapter. Chapter 11:29 Cross-Border Stone. The army of the Yu Dynasty has been assembled. Once the army of the Yu Dynasty launches an attack, even if the 10 major dynasties along the way join forces, they cannot be their opponents. Therefore, Emperor Yang Yan's idea was very simple: to defeat the Great Xia Dynasty as soon as possible, then capture Lu Chen and send Lu Chen to the Yu Dynasty. Only in this way can they escape danger. After hearing what Emperor Yang Yan said, an emperor in the corner with an ice silkworm on his head said, "Yang Yan is right. With our 10 dynasties joining forces, it will be easy to destroy the Great Xia Dynasty. You all will send troops to Great Xia immediately." Dynasty. At this time, Emperor Mingxin said, "We must send out troops. Our Tianming dynasty has assembled a large army and is on its way to the Xia Dynasty. But before that, please take a look at the projection." Hearing this, the emperors and ministers in the hall all looked at the projection again. One of the emperors asked doubtfully, "What else is there to see? Do you suspect that he is not the 9th prince of the Yu Dynasty?" Emperor Mingxin crossed his arms on his chest, rubbed his chin with one hand, and made a thoughtful expression. "This blue wall of light should be some kind of barrier, right?" After hearing this, all the emperors noticed that there was a light blue wall of light between Lu Chen and the Silver Moon Quasi-Emperor. Emperor Yang Yan said disdainfully, "Isn't it just a barrier? What's all the fuss about? 10 of us dynasties joined forces and still can't break through a barrier." Emperor Mingxin said, "That's true." Emperor Yang Yan said, "Since the 9th prince of the Yu Dynasty has known for a long time that the Yu Dynasty has sent an army to attack him, he will naturally be prepared. It is not surprising to arrange formations and barriers in advance. But as long as we join forces, those formation barriers won't last long no matter how powerful they are. Adding up the 10 major dynasties, there are at least 10 emperors, not to mention that some of these dynasties have more than one emperor. If the emperors of the 10 major dynasties take action together, they can be regarded as a superpower in the universe. There is no need to think too much when dealing with a dynasty on the edge of the universe." Emperor Yang Yan continued, "Okay, everyone, don't waste time, send troops, we will meet in the Great Xia Dynasty." After Emperor Yang Yan finished speaking, the images of all the emperors in the hall disappeared one after another. Soon, the 10 major dynasties dispatched hundreds of immortal boats, dozens of quasi-emperors, and more than a dozen great emperors, heading towards the Great Xia Dynasty in a mighty manner. Although Lu Chen had expected the Yangon dynasty and 10 other dynasties to send troops, he didn't take it to heart. As long as there is no Emperor of Heaven, the fairy umbrella is enough to deal with all attacks. Of course, Lu Chen still made some preparations, but these preparations were all to deal with the possible demon crisis that would arise next. Nowadays, the War Dragon army within the Great Xia Dynasty has been seizing the time to train. The War Dragon army is not only for fighting against the Yu Dynasty, but also for the general confrontation between superpowers, all based on top combat power. Currently, most of the soldiers in the Zonlong army are at the Divine Transformation realm or the 10,000 Dharma realm, and not even the Guishu realm. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. At best, these soldiers can only contain the ordinary soldiers of the Yu Dynasty and deal with possible demons. Lu Chen had a premonition that once the Yu Dynasty pushed all the way to the Great Xia Dynasty, countless people would die along the way. The fear and disaster caused by the war would create more demons in this universe. The biggest problem Xia will face at that time is to deal with these demons. The army of the Shenyu dynasty is not the main enemy of the Dragon War army. In a certain dormitory, Lu Chen's main body was lying on Pei Shuhua's soft body, and both of their bodies sank into the recessed part of the fairy gold bed. Fortunately, the bedboard made of fairy gold had good ductility. Even though the bed was almost touching the bottom, there was still no collapse. Lu Chen glanced at the system panel at this time. Congratulations to the host for getting a wife and concubine, and a cross-border stone as a reward. Seeing this reward, Lu Chen was a little curious about what the cross-border stone was for. With a thought, Lu Chen opened the system's introduction to the cross-border stone. Cross-border stone. It can help the host cross the boundary sea, no grade. Seeing this introduction, Lu Chen was stunned again. Boundary sea. What is that place? He has now recovered a lot of memories from his past life or previous lives, but he has never heard of the boundary sea. Could it be that this boundary sea is in the outer realm? Lu Chen then asked the system, "System, where is this world sea?" The system replied, "When the host breaks through to the realm of the Emperor of Heaven, he will be able to see the boundary sea." Lu Chen thought to himself, would he be able to see the boundary sea if he broke through to the realm of the Emperor of Heaven? So the boundary sea is related to cultivation. Is there a boundary sea at the end of the cultivation road? Only by crossing the boundary sea can we break through to a higher realm. Or is it that this universe is a Matryoshka doll, and only by reaching a higher level of cultivation can we see the boundaries of this universe? That's not right. He was in the realm of the Emperor of Heaven in his last era, but he had never seen the so-called boundary sea in his last era. The error-free version is being read. First release of this novel. Lu Chen was about to ask the system when the system repeated, "When the host breaks through to the realm of the Emperor of Heaven, you can see the boundary sea." Lu Chen instantly understood what the system meant, and the system had no intention of revealing anything about Xia Hai to him. But no matter what, maybe he can really unlock the secret of his life experience in this life. Even the term, Ji, which he had never heard of in the last era, appeared, proving that he was very close to the truth in this life. At least he is closer to the secret of his life than he was in the last era. Thinking of this, Lu Chen stopped thinking. He lowered his head slightly and glanced at the woman beneath him. Then he pulled away, and then he pulled Pei Shuhua out of the depression beside the bed. With a wave of his hand, the entire big bed instantly changed to what it looked like before the two cultivated together. Seeing that Lu Chen did not continue, Pei Shuhua, who gradually regained consciousness, finally breathed a sigh of relief. She thought that Lu Chen would really wait until she broke through before letting her go. It turned out that Lu Chen was just scaring her. Okay. Pei Shuhua turned her head at this time and looked at Lu Chen with charming eyes. "Your Majesty, I disappoint you. I failed to break through." Lu Chen raised his hand, slowly moved down from Pei Shuhua's temples, caressed her jade cheek, looked into her eyes and said, "It's okay, we still have plenty of time, I can continue to help you practice." Pei Shuhua's heart skipped a beat and she quickly said, "Your Majesty, dual cultivation has no effect on me. I'd better stabilize my cultivation for a while." Pei Shuhua was really afraid that Lu Chen would press him again immediately. Lu Chen said, "It didn't work. Really, I see that the Taoist charm exuding from you is very strong." After hearing this, Pei Shuhua realized that her way of guardianship had bound Lu Chen to a certain extent, so when the two of them practiced together, the Daoyun in their bodies could not help but be released. With Daoyun's continuous release, it is obvious that her cultivation level has actually improved. However, it is not easy to break through when she reaches the realm of the Great Emperor. End of chapter. Chapter 11:30. What kind of enchantment is this? Pei Shuhua saw that Lu Chen had seen through her lies, and her cheeks, which were originally full of red clouds, became even more rosy, as if water could be squeezed out by pressing. Pei Shuhua, who was originally dignified and noble, was now full of the charm of a young woman. Seeing Pei Shuhua like this, Lu Chen's heart moved slightly, and he had some ideas. However, Lu Chen did not rush over. He also knew that Pei Shuhua was not as resistant as Empress Tianong and Chu Yunji. He scratched Pei Shuhua's exquisite nose and smiled. "Okay, I won't tease you anymore. You should have a good rest for a while next. Seeing that Lu Chen took the initiative to let her go, Pei Shuhua hurriedly said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Lu Chen suddenly sneered, "Still call me Your Majesty." Pei Shuhua's brain was slightly startled. Lu Chen was originally the lord of the Great Xia Dynasty. Even if she was Lu Chen's woman, it didn't matter if she called Lu Chen His Majesty. But she suddenly remembered that when they were practicing dual cultivation before, Lu Chen always asked her to call him husband and good brother. Pei Shuhua resisted the urge to recall what happened before and whispered, "Husband. Husband." Lu Chen then leaned over and kissed Pei Shuhua's lips heavily, then said, "That's about right. Okay, I have something else to do, so I'll leave first. This is your bedroom in the Tianqian world in the future. If you don't want to live here, you can also go back to the main star of the Red Moon Dynasty before. When you miss me, tell me through the puppet I gave you." Hearing Lu Chen's words, a deep red appeared on the face of the new young woman again. After practicing with Lu Chen for a while, she instantly heard what Lu Chen meant by "miss." Lu Chen did not continue to tease her. The next moment, his body disappeared from the room. Lu Chen's sudden disappearance made Pei Shuhua feel empty for a while, and she was a little uncomfortable. She raised her beautiful head and glanced at the entire bedroom. The scenes of dual cultivation during this period kept replaying in her mind. Unconsciously, the corners of Pei Shuhua's mouth rose slightly. This was a happy smile that Pei Shuhua herself did not notice. The 10 Great Dynasties came very quickly. The 10 Great Dynasties and the Great Xia Dynasty were located in the same superstar region, so they were not too far away. In addition, in order to destroy the Great Xia Dynasty when the army of the Shenyu Dynasty arrived, the armies of the 10 Great Dynasties were heading to the Great Xia Dynasty at the fastest speed. At this moment, outside the Fengyang Star region, there were already densely packed immortal boats of the major dynasties. On the other hand, there were only a dozen or so sparse starships in the Fengyang Star region of the Great Xia Dynasty. At this time, the emperors of the 10 Great Dynasties had gathered outside the Fengyang Star region. The Ice Silkworm Emperor arrived last and saw that the other emperors were watching in the void without taking action. He came over and asked, "What is the situation now? Why didn't you take the lead in launching an attack?" The Yangan Emperor did not answer the question of the Ice Silkworm Emperor, but glanced at the dozen starships in the Fengyang Star region. The ferry boat of the Great Xia Dynasty is a bit special. It can be activated without using spiritual power. The Poshan Emperor said, "When we destroy the Great Xia Dynasty, the drawings for making this ferry boat will naturally fall into our hands. At that time, we can also manufacture this ferry boat in large quantities." Hearing the conversation between the two, the Ice Silkworm Emperor said impatiently, "Then why don't you hurry up?" The Mingxin Emperor said, "Strange, why does the other party seem to have no defense at all? Although the Great Xia Dynasty is located at the edge of the universe, it is still a dynasty after all. How could a dynasty have only these dozen ferry boats?" The armies of the 10 Great Dynasties were approaching, and even the emperors were already in place, but the Great Xia Dynasty was not prepared at all. This clearly showed that they did not take the 10 Great Dynasties seriously. The Ice Silkworm Emperor said, "Don't worry about it, break this barrier first." As he spoke, the aura of the Ice Silkworm Emperor surged, and the next moment, a huge Ice Silkworm Dharma image appeared in the void. The Ice Silkworm slightly flapped its crystal-clear wings, and countless ice meteorites were born in the void. Then, these ice meteorites frantically bombarded the blue barrier. Everyone looked at the place bombarded by the ice meteorites, wanting to see how strong this barrier was. Half an hour passed quickly, and as a result, under the bombardment of the Ice Silkworm Emperor Dharma image, the blue barrier did not move at all, not even a slight unlocking. The Ice Silkworm Emperor immediately withdrew his hand and frowned at the blue barrier in front of him. He knew very well that he had just used 80% of his strength. After using 80% of his strength, he didn't even create a crack. This formation must be very complicated. At this time, Emperor Yangan said, "After all, that person is the 9th prince of the Shenyu dynasty. It's not surprising that he can set up a high-level formation. Let's attack together. After hearing Emperor Yangon's words, the emperors beside him did not hesitate anymore. They showed their Dharma images one after another and infused all their spiritual power into Emperor Yangon's Dharma image. Read the error-free version. The first release of this novel. Emperor Yangon shouted, "The setting sun is broken." In an instant, a setting sun that stretched for a light year appeared behind Emperor Yangon's Dharma image, followed by a fiery red light column that rushed straight to the blue barrier outside the Fengyang star region. When the fiery red light column was about to hit the blue barrier, it instantly turned into a phoenix burning with blazing flames, and the phoenix's sharp beak violently hit the protective barrier created by the fairy umbrella. However, everyone soon discovered that the barrier was still there, and Emperor Yangon immediately said to the emperors behind him, "Increase your strength." Then the emperors' auras surged again, and they infused spiritual power into Emperor Yangon to the limit of their bodies. The phoenix that hit the blue barrier also became larger at this moment. Just like that, a month passed. In the universe, it is normal for the battles between emperors to last for several months, several years, or even decades. So a month is nothing. But when they saw that there was no crack in the blue barrier, the emperors present were a little panicked. They were very short of time. If they did not quickly destroy the Great Xia Dynasty, they would be destroyed. The Ice Silkworm Emperor cursed at this time. What kind of enchantment is this? How come it's been a month and there's still no crack? The Mingxin Emperor said, "No wonder the Great Xia Dynasty didn't take us seriously at all. Come to think of it, since the 9th prince knew that the Shenyu dynasty was going to send an army to attack him, why did he dare to stay here? He must have something to rely on." The Ice Silkworm Emperor said, "Who cares what he relies on? If this enchantment can't be broken, we should flee. Generally, the lords of dynasties will not easily abandon the dynasty they founded. After all, a dynasty may be the life's work of a dynasty lord, and the blessing of the dynasty's luck has given them the current strength. If they abandon their dynasty and flee, their strength will inevitably decline significantly. The epical catastrophe is about to begin. At this time, the strength is greatly reduced, and the end is self-evident." End of this chapter. Chapter 1131. Do you think I am no match for those people? Just when the emperors of the 10 great dynasties were feeling overwhelmed by the barrier created by the fairy umbrella, a golden and extremely luxurious ferry boat appeared in the Fengyang star region. After seeing this ferry boat, Emperor Yangon immediately stopped attacking the barrier of the fairy umbrella. Emperor Poshan said, "This ferry boat is so gorgeous, the person inside should be the 9th prince, right?" Emperor Bingkan sneered, "Is he unable to hold on and running to beg for mercy?" Although they did not cause any damage to the barrier, it would consume terrible power to maintain such a powerful formation barrier. In the eyes of Emperor Bingkan, the 9th prince of the Shenyu dynasty was at most the strength of the first level of the emperor, and his little power could not support it for too long. Hearing Emperor Bingkan's speculation, the emperors felt that it made sense, and for a while, they all felt relieved. Emperor Mingxin just looked at the ferry boat quietly, and for a while, he had a bad premonition in his heart. At this moment, in the Feihong immortal boat, Lu Chen stood behind the Tiannong Empress, holding her belly with one big hand. The two of them were in an intimate state, and in front of them was the projection of the coalition of the 10 great dynasties. Seeing that the emperors had stopped and did not continue to attack, Lu Chen leaned over the ear of the Tiannong Empress and whispered, "Hong Hong, are you their opponent? I don't know what happened, but the Tiannong Empress has been a little restless recently, probably because the baby in her belly is too noisy." After learning that an enemy attacked the Great Xia Dynasty, the Tiannong Empress's eyes completely turned scarlet, emitting red light, and the killing power on her body could not be stopped. In order to stabilize the emotions of the Tiannong Empress, Lu Chen used the current method to temporarily seal her. The Tiannong Empress thought that Lu Chen would not allow her to go out, and for a while, she was full of resentment towards Lu Chen. However, because Lu Chen was too strong, and her body was locked by Lu Chen, and there was also the barrier of the fairy umbrella, she had no way to leave. The Rainbow Queen didn't expect Lu Chen to bring her to Fengyang Star region. From what he said, was he going to let her out to fight? For a moment, the Rainbow Queen became more excited, her muscles tensed, her body became extremely hot, and the killing power on her body continued to wreak havoc in the Feihong immortal boat. Lu Chen took a breath of cold air. Hiss. Lu Chen hurriedly said, don't worry, I'll let you out right away. After hearing this, the Rainbow Queen said coldly, let me out, and I'll forgive you for your rudeness to me this time. Lu Chen said, don't worry, take a look and see if you are the opponent of those people. The 10 great dynasties gathered 13 emperors. Although those emperors were also at the first and second levels of the emperor, their cultivation was not too high, but there were many people, so Lu Chen planned to be more careful. The Rainbow Queen had her own child in her belly. If something happened, it would be more trouble than gain. Hearing Lu Chen's words, the Rainbow Queen asked back, do you think I am not a match for those people? The Rainbow Queen thought Lu Chen's words were a little funny. He was a great emperor who mastered the power of killing, but Lu Chen actually thought he was not a match for those great emperors. When she was in the outer domain, she killed all the great emperors of the first and second levels with one sword. Now that she has the Empress sword in her hand, let alone 13 great emperors, she has the confidence to kill through the entire universe. Of course, the great emperors who mastered the power of killing are bloodthirsty in their hearts. Even if the enemy is strong, they will not have any fear in their hearts, especially when they have been suppressed for too long. Lu Chen smiled and said, you haven't even beaten me, how can I let you go with confidence? The killing power released by the Rainbow Queen surged again. If the Feihong Shenzhou was not the companion spiritual weapon of the Rainbow Queen, it would probably have been shattered by the raging killing power at this moment. If they really fight, the Rainbow Queen thinks that 10 Lu Chens are not her opponents. The key is that since she got pregnant with Lu Chen's child, she and Lu Chen have become more and more closely bound by cause and effect. The most important point is that she is still the spirit of Lu Chen's contracted spirit weapon, and she cannot resist Lu Chen. This is also the reason why she was easily subdued by Lu Chen when she wanted to go to Fengyang Star region before. The Rainbow Queen stopped talking. If Lu Chen didn't want her to go out, she couldn't get out of Lu Chen's control, and it was useless to say more. The next moment, the Rainbow Queen used the power of killing and slaughtered Lu Chen's life seeds crazily. For a while, the evil spirit on the Rainbow Queen became heavier and heavier. After feeling the pressure from the Rainbow Queen, Lu Chen laughed, and then said in her ear, I brought you to Fengyang Star region, and I will naturally let you out. You should see the strength of those people first. The latest chapter of this novel is released, please go to read it. After hearing Lu Chen's words, the Rainbow Queen calmed down a little. The Rainbow Queen directly released her divine thoughts, and a divine thought with killing power instantly swept across the 13 emperors outside the Fengyang Star region. At this moment, Emperor Yangan and others were preparing to attack again, but the next moment, they felt a divine thought sweeping over them. After feeling the killing power contained in this divine thought, everyone's face changed instantly, especially Emperor Mingxin, who had witnessed the scene of Emperor Shenwu killing people in the outer domain. He said that after he saw the immortal boat, he felt his soul trembling. It turned out that there was a great emperor who possessed the power of killing in the immortal boat. An emperor said in panic, this is the power of killing. How could the Great Xia Dynasty have an emperor who can control the power of killing? Then, another emperor also said in horror, no wonder the other party has never taken us seriously. No, I can't stay here any longer. After the Ice Silkworm Emperor came to his senses, he hurriedly said, impossible, the only one who succeeded in proving the Tao by killing is the Emperor Shenwu. Now that the Emperor Shenwu has fallen, how could there be someone who can control the power of killing? This must be the divine thought left by the Emperor Shenwu on a spiritual weapon during his lifetime. The Great Xia Dynasty wants to use this divine thought to scare us away. Hearing this, everyone woke up from a dream. Emperor Mingxin said, yes, how could I forget about this? That person is the 9th prince of the Shenyu dynasty. He may have the magic weapon left by the Emperor Shenwu. When they thought that the killing power belonged to the Emperor Shenwu, they breathed a sigh of relief. After all, the Emperor Shenwu was dead. It was just a divine thought, which could only scare people at most. Emperor Yangon then said, "In this case, let's continue the attack. He has released his divine thoughts to scare us. I think this barrier can't hold out for much longer." After the words fell, Emperor Yangon was ready to attack the blue barrier again. However, at this moment, a thick black evil spirit emanated from the gorgeous ferry boat in the distance. For a moment, the void around the ferry boat was shrouded in black evil spirit, and then, the black evil spirit emanated a blood-red killing force. Seeing this scene, Emperor Mingxin's face turned pale. Chapter 1132. It only took one sword to kill a great emperor. Emperor Mingxin is not a fool. The first divine thought that contained the killing power can indeed be explained by the divine will of Emperor Shenwu. However, the strong killing power emanating from the immortal boat cannot be that of Emperor Shenwu. Left behind during his lifetime, Emperor Mingxin had seen the scene where Emperor Shenwu took action. He could exude such strong killing power only if Emperor Shenwu was still alive. Now that Emperor Shenwu is dead, it means that there really is a new emperor in the Great Xia Dynasty who has the power of killing. When he thought that Emperor Shenwu had killed a person at the 5th level of the emperor instantly, the panic in Emperor Mingxin's heart was immediately amplified. No, he couldn't stay here any longer, and Emperor Mingxin immediately prepared to use the space movement technique to escape from this star field. However, the next moment, Emperor Mingxin discovered that the entire star field had been blocked, making it impossible to use the technique of space movement. Being able to seal off an emperor's space, one can imagine the opponent's strength. Even if he cannot use the space movement technique, he has to escape quickly. Immediately, Emperor Mingxin turned into a stream of light. But at the next moment, a sword energy suddenly struck, and the sword energy contained a strong killing power. In just an instant, all the emperors present were sent flying half a light year away by this sword energy. Just when the emperors had just stabilized their bodies, a red figure passed through the barrier of the Great Xia Dynasty and appeared in front of them. The woman is wearing a long red dress. She has a beautiful appearance, slender legs, and a noble temperament. Her body exudes blood-red killing power. There is a sword suspended next to her body, and the sword is also exuding black evil aura. Look, I don't know how many people were killed. After feeling the killing power of Empress Tianong, the emperors could no longer calm down. The ice silkworm emperor murmured, "How is it possible? How could another great emperor with the power of killing appear? Proving the Tao through killing requires a lot of killing. For example, Emperor Shenwu was able to successfully prove the Tao because the Emperor Shenwu continued to wage wars. I'm afraid he couldn't let go of the people he killed in several star regions. In the end, Emperor Shenwu succeeded in attaining enlightenment. And currently, the only person known to have proven his way through killing is the new dynasty leader of the Shenyu dynasty. However, the outside world is speculating that the so-called Shenwu Emperor is just a title. The Shenyu dynasty is eager to launch war with foreign countries. In fact, it is to enable Lu Yangwe to prove his way through killing. It is not known whether Lu Yangwe really killed the emperor, but now they actually saw a real empress with the power of killing in such a dynasty on the edge of the universe. She must have killed a lot of people if she was able to achieve enlightenment successfully. It is impossible that she is not famous at all. Why have they never heard of an empress in the universe who achieved enlightenment through killing? Emperor Yang Yan stabilized his heart, saluted to Empress Tianong, and then said, "I wonder what the relationship between this senior and the Great Xia Dynasty is." Emperor Yang Yan can only pray that Empress Tianong is just passing by the Great Xia Dynasty. Otherwise, if she really takes action, even if their side has a chance of winning, they may be killed by the Empress in front of them. There are too many variables in starting a fight with the Emperor who masters killing. No one can tell whether he is the one who will die. Therefore, Emperor Yang Yan will definitely not take action if he can't. Empress Tianong ignored Emperor Yangon's words. She could no longer resist the urge to kill. The next moment, she raised her jade hand, and the Emperor's sword flew directly into her hand. Then, Empress Tianong mobilized her killing power, rushed directly towards one of the great emperors. Seeing Empress Tianong taking action immediately after a disagreement, everyone's expressions changed instantly. As expected, those who used killing to prove their truth were all lunatics and would not listen to what they said. Emperor Yangon said quickly, "Let's all take action together. Even if she masters the power of killing, she is not much different from our realm. I don't believe that there are so many of us that we can't trap her." After hearing Emperor Yangon's words, everyone immediately took action, and the next moment, a formation appeared at the feet of Empress Tianong. Emperor Yang Yan shouted loudly, "9 heavens locking dragon formation, rise." Soon, a large formation was formed, surrounding Empress Tianong. Seeing this scene, the emperor who was targeted by Empress Tianong just breathed a sigh of relief. Emperor Yang Yan continued, "Don't take it lightly. After all, he is the emperor who possesses the power of killing and will not be subdued so easily." Just as Emperor Yangon expected, when he finished speaking, he saw the emperor's sword in the hands of Empress Tianong instantly turned into countless swords floating in the void. Then, these swords rushed towards the people surrounding her with killing power. The formation, in just an instant, the 9 heavens locking dragon formation was broken through. The great emperor who had just breathed a sigh of relief panicked for a moment. He immediately released the Dharma, and then shouted loudly, "Wind and thunder slash." Streams of sword light swung out from the sword in his golden body, but these sword lights still had no effect on Empress Tianong. The clone of the emperor's sword automatically flew in front of the Rainbow Empress and blocked all the sword intentions. The next moment, the figure of Empress Tianong appeared in front of the great emperor in a flash. Then she mobilized her killing power and stabbed out with a sword. A blood-red sword energy instantly penetrated the emperor's Dharma form, and at the same time, the emperor's body and the soul was also penetrated by this sword. Seeing this horrific scene, the emperor present seemed to have woken up from a dream. They were so frightened that they fled to different places. The latest chapter of this novel is first released, please go and read it. One sword. It only took one sword to kill a great emperor. Although that great emperor was only at the first level of the great emperor realm, he was still a great emperor after all. The great emperor who mastered the power of killing was really strong without any reason. As great emperors, how could their strength gap be so big? For a moment, the remaining great emperors on the scene regretted that they should not have come to besiege the Great Xia Dynasty. If they abandoned their own dynasty and ran away, although their strength might decline, at least their lives would be saved. It was too difficult to save their lives when they met such a killing god. Seeing that those great emperors wanted to escape, the Tianong female emperor waved her expressionless hand, and in an instant, the entire void turned blood-red. In front of those great emperors, a blood-colored barrier also appeared, and all of them were trapped in it. Seeing this barrier, Emperor Mingxin suddenly said loudly, "No, this is the killing field." He had seen the scene of Emperor Shenwu slaughtering strong men in the outer domain, so he knew how terrifying this killing field was. In this killing field, unless they are the same emperors who have proved their way through killing, their strength will be greatly reduced. The most important point is that once they are locked in the field, they will have almost no possibility of escape. The space has been locked, and they can't escape even if they want to. Emperor Mingxin said quickly, "Quick, everyone work together to break this field, otherwise we will all die here today." Hearing this, the emperors present took action one after another, trying to break the killing field created by Empress Tianong. Chapter 1133 Queen Tianong, shut up. Although everyone has realized the horror of the killing field, even if they join forces, they cannot break through the killing field in a short time. The killing domain has suppressed the power of the great Tao in them. Within the killing domain, even if Empress Tianong meets an emperor who is 2 or 3 levels higher than her, she can still kill him. Empress Tianong raised the emperor's sword again, and more clones of the emperor's sword appeared in the killing field, and each clone of the emperor's sword contained a large amount of killing power. Empress Tianong raised her hand and waved, and countless emperor swords wrapped in the power of killing turned into blood dragons and flew towards the emperors who were struggling in the killing field. Seeing this scene, Emperor Yang Yan and others took out their own life-saving cards to resist, but facing the killing power of the emperor's daughter's sword, their cards soon ran out. Seeing that their cards were all exhausted, the Ice Silkworm Emperor suddenly said, "Senior, I surrender, and from now on I will be loyal to." In the Great Xia Dynasty, seniors, please show mercy. Quote. The Ice Silkworm Emperor thought to himself that he was a great emperor after all. The Great Xia Dynasty would soon face the army of the Shenyu Dynasty. At this time, high-end combat power was crucial to the Great Xia Dynasty. He believed that as long as he surrendered, the head of the Great Xia Dynasty would not continue to make things difficult for him. After hearing the words of the Ice Silkworm Emperor, other emperors also echoed and said, "Senior, please be merciful, I am also willing to surrender to the Great Xia Dynasty." "Senior, I too." At this moment, Empress Tianong's aura suddenly erupted, and her killing power also completely exploded at this moment. For a time, the entire killing field was filled with killing power. Empress Tianong shouted coldly, "Shut up." For Lu Chen, these emperors can indeed become good thugs. But, Lu Chen is Lu Chen, and Empress Tianong is Empress Tianong. Empress Tianong only wants to kill, and she will never allow these emperors to surrender. If they really let these emperors surrender, what will happen to her own addiction to killing? Although she could also relieve her desire to kill by killing Lu Chen's seed of life, it was obvious that killing the emperor would make her more excited than killing those seeds of life. Seeing that Empress Tianong was angry, the killing power from her body surged out like crazy. The emperors present were all stunned. Hadn't they all decided to surrender? Why was this woman still angry? What's going on? Empress Tianong glanced at the Ice Silkworm Emperor indifferently. It was this man who looked like a toad who proposed surrender. Since he was the first to surrender, he would be the first to die. The next moment, the swords of the Emperor's daughter in the killing domain came together to form a giant bloody dragon, heading straight for the Ice Silkworm Emperor. The Ice Silkworm Emperor suddenly broke into a cold sweat and begged for mercy again and again. "Senior, have mercy. Senior, Before the Ice Silkworm Emperor finished speaking, the Ice Silkworm Emperor's protective magical weapon was shattered instantly, and the blood dragon condensed with killing power also passed through the Ice Silkworm Emperor's body in an instant. The next moment, the Ice Silkworm Emperor's soul was completely destroyed. Seeing that another great emperor died, the remaining great emperors were completely confused and panicked. It's not like surrendering, nor can they be defeated. Is it possible that they all have to wait for death in this killing field? Just when Empress Tianong was about to find her next prey, suddenly there was an opening in Empress Tianong's killing field. Seeing this scene, everyone seemed to see hope of survival and fled towards the opening. Look, her killing field is about to disappear. Run away quickly, escape from that opening. Ha ha ha, the road is boundless. As long as we leave the killing field, I don't believe this crazy woman can catch up with me. Perhaps due to the threat of death, some of these emperors were close to madness, and they rushed towards the opening in the killing field desperately. At this time, Empress Tianong was stunned in the void. She did not expect that someone could actually open her killing field, and she also opened it from the outside. The most important point is that she clearly sensed the fluctuation of killing power outside. Could it be that the one from the Shenyu Dynasty has arrived? Just when Empress Tianong was thinking about quickly dealing with these emperors who were about to escape, suddenly, a handsome and elegant figure appeared at the opening of the killing field. Feeling the power emanating from Emperor Lu Chen's clone, the emperors who were about to break through stopped instantly. Emperor Yang Yan asked, "Is this the 9th prince of the Shenyu Dynasty?" Seeing that it was Lu Chen, Empress Tianong's heart skipped a beat. She knew that she might not be able to take action against those emperors in the future. Those emperors must have said they wanted to surrender just now, and then they attracted Lu Chen. Empress Tianong is not a fool. She knows that Lu Chen's position is different from hers. As the head of the dynasty, Lu Chen naturally hopes that his dynasty will have more great emperors, and she only wants to hunt these great emperors. When she thought of the toad-like emperor taking the lead in surrender, Empress Tianong couldn't help but feel the anger in her heart, and her killing power continued to wreak havoc in the killing field. Lu Chen looked at the emperor in front of him and said with a smile, you didn't just break in. Most people would rush in desperately after seeing the hope of life, but these emperors actually chose to stop after seeing him. It seemed that they were not completely brainless. Emperor Mingxin said, "How could you not have some tricks to stop us at this time? If we force our way in, I'm afraid we will end up like the two emperors just now." Emperor Yangon frowned and asked, "What do you want?" Lu Chen glanced at everyone, and then his eyes fell on Empress Tianong. At this time, Empress Tianong was furious. Seeing Lu Chen looking at her, she turned her head to the side, and the killing power on her body became stronger again. Lu Chen smiled slightly, and his eyes returned to the emperors. "I just heard you say that you want to be loyal to the Great Xia Dynasty." Hearing this question, the emperors were stunned. They just said such words to save their lives. After all, only when people are alive, everything is possible. Now that there is a hole in the killing field, if they force their way in, it is not completely hopeless to escape. Did they still have to surrender at this time? For a moment, all the emperors hesitated, but at this moment, Emperor Yangon snorted and laughed and said, "Sorry, I will never be loyal to you." After the words fell, a huge Dharma image appeared behind Emperor Yangon, and then he sneered, "The broken sun is broken." A blood-red fireball appeared above the head of Emperor Yangon's Dharma image, and then a fiery red light beam flew out of the fireball. Emperor Yangon thought to himself that even if Lu Chen had some tricks, he was not the emperor who mastered the power of killing. And he could clearly feel that Lu Chen's strength was only the first level of the emperor, while he was the second level of the emperor. He didn't believe that all the emperors combined couldn't get out. End of this chapter. Chapter 1134. He is not walking on the road of life. Seeing that Emperor Yangon was determined to take action, Lu Chen sighed. Originally, he thought that Emperor Yangon was the second-level emperor, and he was trying to recruit him, but he didn't expect that this guy would be the first to take action. He had no choice but to make these great emperors willing to accept his soul control technique later on, so he had to kill the chickens to scare the monkeys. Since Emperor Yang Yan jumped out first, even if he is the second-level emperor, he can only be dealt with. Seeing the setting sun breaking the illusion of the fire phoenix about to impact Lu Chen suddenly emitted green power of creation, but the power of creation only lasted for a moment. The next moment, all the power of creation turned into blood red, and these blood red powers emitted black evil energy. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the emperors changed drastically again. Kill, the power of killing. How is it possible? There is another great emperor who proves his way by killing. It's over, When Emperor Yangon saw this scene, he suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. He thought that even if Lu Chen had any magic weapon on his body, it was only the first-level cultivation of the emperor. If these emperors joined forces, Lu Chen would not be able to stop them. In the end, the one who stopped them was the emperor who proved the way through killing. When did there become so many emperors who used killing to prove the way? Isn't it said that killing to prove the Tao will easily anger the Tao of heaven and lead to death by the Tao of heaven? Why are there so many great emperors who committed suicide and became enlightened all of a sudden? Seeing the killing power emanating from Lu Chen, even Empress Tianong was a little confused. Her cold eyes were full of doubts. Isn't he taking the road of life? When will he be able to master the art of killing? Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Walking two paths alone. Haven't been bitten yet. Is this possible? Just when he saw that setting sun pose technique was about to hit Lu Chen raised his hand, and a sword appeared in Lu Chen's hand. The next moment, Lu Chen just waved his sword lightly. Ice 8th level sword. In an instant, Lu Chen's killing power wrapped around his sword energy and rushed towards the fire phoenix. The fire phoenix was instantly frozen by the sword energy. In a moment, the fire phoenix shattered into starlight. Seeing Lu Chen defeating his strongest move so easily, Emperor Yang Yan panicked. He quickly said, "I just thought about it, but it's not impossible to be loyal to you." Lu Chen laughed and said, "I thought you were very brave just now, but now it seems that you are nothing more than that. After all, you are a great emperor, so you should have the dignity of an emperor. Since you have chosen to take action, it is better for me to respect you." As he spoke, Lu Chen once again used his killing power and concentrated it on the sword in his hand. Then, a huge star appeared behind him. This star was even bigger than the fireball above Emperor Yang Yan's head. At the same time, countless sword energy condensed with killing power appeared in the void. Lu Chen stabbed out with his sword. Moving stars and 10,000 swords. Countless swords rushed towards Emperor Yang Yan with even more violent killing power. The emperors near Emperor Yang Yan hurriedly dodged. Emperor Yang Yan also wanted to escape, but at this time he found that his body could not move, as if he had been trapped. A force pressed into the void. At this time, Empress Tianong in the distance saw that Lu Chen actually wanted to kill Emperor Yang Yan, and she immediately became unhappy. Of course, she was not opposed to killing Emperor Yang Yan, but it couldn't be Lu Chen who killed Emperor Yang Yan. In her killing field, Lu Chen actually competed with her for a head. Definitely not. Seeing that the tens of thousands of sword energy wielded by Lu Chen were about to come into contact with Emperor Yangan, Emperor Yangan laughed and said, "Since you don't want me to live, then you can all be buried with me, ha ha ha, puff." Before Emperor Yang Yan could self-destruct his soul, suddenly with a sword, a blood dragon pierced through the Dharma behind him, as well as his body and soul. A flash of unwillingness flashed in Emperor Yangan's eyes, and then his body suddenly exploded, turning into blood and water all over the sky, and his soul also disintegrated into dots of starlight. Forehead. This. Lu Chen also didn't expect that Empress Tianong would attack from behind and strike first than himself. He looked at Empress Tianong at this time. Empress Tianong snorted expressionlessly and continued to look away, not looking directly at Lu Chen. Lu Chen smiled faintly. He originally wanted to test the power of the killing power he had mastered, but in the end, he was killed by Empress Tianong. Although the Tao of creation is the beginning of all Taos, it was the first time for Lu Chen to use the destructive power evolved from the Tao of creation, and it was not very smooth. The specific destructive power was unknown, so Lu Chen only then did Chen prepare to take action himself. Forget it, Empress Tianong is also his woman, and there is no difference between him doing it and Empress Tianong doing it. Anyway, killing the chicken to scare the monkey has been done. Lu Chen looked at the remaining emperors with a smile on his face. Does anyone else want to give it a try? Everyone, look at me and I look at you. Emperor Mingxin was the first to react. He immediately saluted Lu Chen and said, "I am willing to be loyal to you. Being alive is better than being dead. It's just surrender, it's not a big deal. At this time, don't say that the emperor cannot be humiliated." The most recent chapters are being read. The opponent is also a great emperor, and he is also an emperor who has the power of killing. The most important thing is that there are two great emperors who have the power of killing. It is not shameful to surrender. The next moment, other great emperors also spoke. "I am also willing to serve you. I am willing to." For a while, all the emperors expressed their loyalty, but their loyalty was more verbal, and some people still had no intention of being loyal to the Great Xia Dynasty. Some people thought to themselves that they were emperors after all, so how could they listen to a yellow-haired boy like you? And the army of the Shenyu dynasty would soon be approaching, and he couldn't wait to die here. Anyway, it was just a superficial loyalty, and when they had a chance in the future, they would immediately flee the Great Xia Dynasty. Lu Chen knew all about these people's little thoughts. He glanced at everyone and said, "Since you are all ready to be loyal to me, then relax your mind." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Relax your mind. The soul of the emperor is not so easy to invade. What's the point of relaxing your mind? Did they think they can control them? They have never heard of the emperor being controlled by someone, and then everyone relaxed their minds. They wanted to see what Lu Chen was going to do. The next moment, a blood-red mark floated out of Lu Chen's forehead, and the mark instantly split into 10 parts, flew to the foreheads of the 10 emperors in front of him, and merged into them. At this time, everyone did not realize the seriousness of the problem. They thought that Lu Chen was pretending. They really had not heard of the method of controlling the emperor in the universe. Even if there is really someone who can become an emperor, then this person's realm must have reached the legendary level. The person in front of him is only at the first level of the emperor realm, and it is absolutely impossible to control them. However, when the soul seal merged into their souls, the emperors were completely panicked. Chapter 1135 Let your main body come. How? How is it possible? Why is there an indelible mark in my soul? He can actually control the emperor. It's over. ... Seeing the people in front of him wailing, Lu Chen's mouth corners slightly raised, and then sneered and said, "Didn't you say you would be loyal to me? Why, after I planted the soul mark on you, you are unwilling to do it? Could it be that you are pretending to be loyal to me, but in fact you are thinking about how to escape?" Hearing this, everyone's foreheads were immediately sweating. Emperor Mingxin hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, I have no such idea." Lu Chen's eyes looked at the other emperors again, and the other emperors also said, "We don't have such an idea either." Now that the soul mark is deep in their souls, their life and death are at a thought. If they still want to escape at this time, their souls will probably be destroyed in the next moment. They can only blame themselves for their bad luck now. At this time, Emperor Mingxin thought of a problem. The Great Xia Dynasty has two emperors who master the power of killing, while the current Shenyu Dynasty only has Lu Yinghua, who is suspected of committing suicide to prove his truth. Is it possible that the strength of the Great Xia Dynasty has actually surpassed that of the Shenyu Dynasty? Although they only have the cultivation of the first or second level of the emperor, they are emperors after all, and they just attacked the formation barrier of the Great Xia Dynasty together but did not break the barrier. Even if the emperor of the Shenyu Dynasty came, it might not be able to break the barrier. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that Lu Chen can set up such a formation barrier. This shows his ability to a certain extent, and it also shows that Lu Chen may have more means to deal with the Shenyu Dynasty. Think about it carefully. If Lu Chen does not have any means, how can he win over another emperor who masters the power of killing, and how can he deal with a round of attacks from the demons? The more Emperor Mingxin thought about it, the more he felt that joining the Great Xia Dynasty might not be a bad thing. If the Great Xia Dynasty can defeat the Shenyu Dynasty and become the superpower of the universe, then they may have a better chance of winning when facing the catastrophe. When thinking of this possibility, Emperor Mingxin was slightly excited. "Okay, since you have chosen to be loyal to me, then go back and prepare yourself. I will go to your dynasty immediately and accept your formal loyalty." Hearing this, everyone was startled. Going to their dynasty and accepting their formal loyalty, does this mean that all their dynasties will be incorporated under the rule of the Great Xia Dynasty? Then wouldn't their dynasty's luck be transferred to Lu Chen, and their future strength will also be greatly reduced? Seeing these people's embarrassed expressions, Lu Chen knew that they were unwilling in their hearts, so he continued, "The army of Shenyu Dynasty is about to arrive. Do you think that you can fight against the army of Shenyu Dynasty alone with your own strength? If one of you can do this, I cannot absorb your dynasty's luck and allow your dynasty to continue to exist independently." The emperors looked at each other, and finally they all bowed to Lu Chen. "We are willing to hand over the dynasty." They thought about it and felt that Lu Chen was right. In this situation, even if Lu Chen did not absorb their dynasty, they would not be able to protect it when the army of Shenyu Dynasty arrived. If they really had the ability to protect their own dynasty, they would not choose to attack the Great Xia Dynasty. When they thought that they not only failed to take down the Great Xia Dynasty, but were controlled by the emperor of the Great Xia Dynasty, they felt very uncomfortable. But it's too late to say anything now. Now they have been completely tied to the ship of the Great Xia Dynasty. If the Great Xia Dynasty is destroyed and Lu Chen dies, I'm afraid they will also be destroyed by the Soul Seal. Lu Chen then said, "You should be glad for the decision you made. After your dynasty is incorporated into the Great Xia Dynasty, the restriction of the Great Xia Dynasty will also spread to your dynasty to protect the people of your dynasty." Hearing this, the emperors were stunned for a moment, and Emperor Mingxin asked at this time, "Is your Majesty telling the truth?" Some emperors don't care about their descendants. For their own lives, they can directly abandon their descendants and escape, but some emperors can't do it. Each emperor has a different way. Take Pei Shuhua's way of protection for example. If she abandons everything she protects after becoming an emperor, once her Tao heart collapses, she may fall directly. Emperor Mingxin used his family affection to prove his Tao. If he abandoned his family and his descendants, his Tao heart would be broken in the end. Therefore, he was the emperor who was most difficult to abandon his dynasty and flee. Now, he was very happy to hear Lu Chen say that the barrier of the Great Xia Dynasty could spread to his dynasty and protect everyone in his dynasty. Lu Chen said, "When your dynasty is integrated into the Great Xia Dynasty, you will know." Latest chapters are being read. Emperor Mingxin immediately said, "I will go back to prepare for the ceremony and wait for His Majesty to come." As soon as the voice fell, the figure of Emperor Mingxin turned into a stream of light. Seeing that Emperor Mingxin had left, the other emperors also left one after another. After all the emperors left, Empress Tianong completely removed the killing field. At this time, Empress Tianong's blood-red eyes stared at Lu Chen, as if she wanted to attack Lu Chen. Lu Chen asked with a smile, "Hong Hong, why are you staring at me like this?" Empress Tianong said coldly, "Let your main body come." Hearing this, Lu Chen asked confusedly, "What's wrong? What is the main body doing here?" Empress Tianong did not explain too much. She flew back to Feihong Shenzhou. Seeing that Empress Tianong had left, Lu Chen also immediately returned to the Shenzhou. After returning to the Shenzhou, Empress Tianong ignored Lu Chen and sat cross-legged to practice. Although he didn't know what Empress Tianong wanted to do, Lu Chen immediately transferred his main body to Empress Tianong. When Empress Tianong felt the breath of Lu Chen's main body, she instantly opened her beautiful eyes. Before Lu Chen could react, Empress Tianong appeared in front of Lu Chen with a space shift. Then Empress Tianong pushed Lu Chen's main body down and sat directly on him. If she had killed those invading emperors, her cultivation might have made a breakthrough, but Lu Chen came to interrupt her, which made her very angry. Since it was Lu Chen who destroyed her breakthrough path, let him pay it back. As for why Lu Chen's main body came, it was because Lu Chen's realm was stronger, and he was more proficient in the use of the power of the Great Tao of Life, and he could use the power of the Great Tao to create more small lives in a short time. Seeing that Empress Tianong looked like she wanted to take revenge on him, Lu Chen said helplessly, "They have all surrendered, I can't let you kill them." End of this chapter. Chapter 1136. Can you evolve all the great powers in the world? Empress Tianong didn't listen to Lu Chen's excuse and went about her own revenge plan. Lu Chen saw that Empress Tianong ignored him and crazily slaughtered the little lives he created. He finally shut up and didn't say anything more. Empress Tianong is very angry now, and because she is pregnant with a child, she is not so easy to coax when she is angry. Lu Chen planned to let her calm down first. After a while, she would be exhausted and she would naturally calm down. But having said that, Empress Tianong seems to have a different flavor when she is angry. Seeing Lu Chen looking at her with a smile on her face, Empress Tianong became even more furious, so she increased her Zan Nu Kung Fu. Hiss! Lu Chen took a breath, and then said, "They have surrendered after all. If you kill them all, who will dare to surrender in the future? How will the Great Xia Dynasty expand? Are you right?" Quote. Empress Tianong still ignored Lu Chen's words and continued to increase her luck. Lu Chen said again, If you encounter an emperor who is determined not to resist, I will definitely let you take action." After hearing this, Empress Tianong felt a little better. She lowered her head and looked down at Lu Chen indifferently, and asked as she moved, "Why do you use the power of killing?" Seeing Empress Tianong take the initiative to speak, Lu Chen knew that Empress Tianong's anger had subsided a little. He smiled slightly and said, "Strictly speaking, it can't be called pure killing power. It's just using my creative power. The killing power of evolution." Hearing Lu Chen's words, Empress Tianong's brain froze and her movements stopped. The power of destruction evolved from the power of creation. Can the power of killing evolve from other forces? How come she hadn't heard of this before? Lu Chen continued, "I am not a pure way of life. The way I walk should be called the way of creation. The way of life is just a branch of the way of creation. The way of creation first appeared and was related to life. The way is almost the same. After all, the way of life can also create life. This is very similar to the way of creation, but the way of creation is not only as simple as creating life, but can also create everything. Even the birth of the universe is inseparable from the way of creation, and the way of creation is the beginning of everything. All things in the world evolve from the way of creation. Having said this, Lu Chen raised his hand, held Empress Tianong's slender waist, and then used his own strength. Hearing Lu Chen's words, Empress Tianong was extremely shocked, but she was quickly brought back to her senses by Lu Chen's little actions. Empress Tianong frowned slightly and stared at Lu Chen with cold eyes. "So, you can evolve all the great powers in the world?" Lu Chen replied. It can be understood that way." Hearing Lu Chen's personal admission, Empress Tianong was slightly lost in thought again. Lu Chen's Tao could evolve all the avenues in the world, so wouldn't Lu Chen be already in an invincible state? In this world, some avenues have a restraining relationship. For example, the 5 elements avenue restrains each other. Another example is that the avenue of death can restrain the avenue of life to a certain extent. If Lu Chen could evolve all the avenues, he would not be afraid at all even if he met an emperor who used the avenue of death to prove his enlightenment. After all, he was not a pure path of life, and his path could evolve all the avenues in the world. Empress Tianong was so shocked that she didn't even react immediately when Lu Chen started to get angry. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Chen's low roar came, and she finally came back to her senses. Seeing the satisfied look on Lu Chen's face, Empress Tianong's face became even colder. The coldness was mixed with a slight blush, which made Empress Tianong look even more chilled. Empress Tianong originally wanted to ask who Lu Chen was, but after thinking about it, she finally did not ask. Lu Chen's memory seems to have not been fully restored. Let's not say whether Lu Chen will tell her identity. Even if Lu Chen is willing to tell him his identity, Lu Chen himself may not know his true identity. Empress Tianong simply didn't ask any questions and continued to massacre the lives created by Lu Chen. After the Shenyu dynasty's army was assembled, a superpower was wiped out in a very short period of time, which once again caused panic among the top powers in the universe. Those top forces never expected that the Shenyu dynasty would still be very powerful without the Shenwu emperor, and it would take less than a month to destroy a superforce. Bayan Star Field Cluster, Lubo Star Field. In the solemn and magnificent hall, a gray-haired old man sat on a dragon chair. He looked at the projection screen in the hall, his face full of sorrow. The Shenyu dynasty was advancing too fast. He originally wanted to win over the entire White Rock Star region dynasty to fight against the Shenyu dynasty. However, the Shenyu dynasty wiped out the largest one in the White Rock Star region group in less than a month. Dynasty. Now there are only 4 dynasties left in the entire Bayan Star group. The strength of these 4 dynasties is not very good. Even if they join forces at this time, they will not pose any threat to the Shenyu dynasty. When he thought of this, Emperor Ning'an sighed deeply. Thinking about it, he is also a 6th-level emperor. Although he is not the strongest existence in the universe, he is still stronger than most emperors. Now he is actually reduced to this point. The most recent chapters are being read. He heard that in the dynasty that was destroyed by the Shenyu dynasty, all the royal family were slaughtered. The great emperor tried to escape, but in the end they were all killed. If he runs away now, he can save his life, but once he escapes, without the blessing of the dynasty's luck, his level will inevitably drop significantly, and it is not impossible to even fall to the 1st level of the great emperor. When he thought of this, Emperor Ning'an was very confused. Should he run away now or continue to fight against the Shenyu dynasty? Suddenly, an idea emerged in Emperor Ning'an's mind. Otherwise, why not just vote? After all, he is still at the 6th level of the great emperor. If he surrenders, when his dynasty merges into the Shenyu dynasty, he may still be blessed by some of the luck of the Shenyu dynasty, and his level will not drop too much by then. The catastrophe is coming soon. If his realm drops too much at this time, he will definitely not be able to resist the catastrophe. Now he must preserve his strength as much as possible. Surrender may be the best way, but one problem is that the Shenyu dynasty's purpose of launching the war this time is probably for the purpose of massacre. If you surrender, the Shenyu dynasty may not accept it, right? Thinking of this, Emperor Ning'an kept tapping his fingers on the throne. At this moment, a soldier hurriedly entered the hall. "Your Majesty, something serious has happened." Emperor Ning'an frowned and his face became extremely serious. "What's wrong?" "The Shenyu dynasty is coming," the soldier said. "The Ice Phoenix dynasty was destroyed. Just like the Qianyu dynasty, everyone in the entire dynasty was slaughtered." Upon hearing this, Emperor Ning'an felt his heart tighten. The soldier continued, "According to the information we received, the Ice Phoenix Emperor wanted to surrender to the Shenyu dynasty, so he left the Ice Phoenix dynasty in person, intending to go to the Shenyu dynasty to meet the head of the Shenyu dynasty. As a result, the Shenyu dynasties while the Ice Phoenix Emperor was away from the Ice Phoenix dynasty, the army directly sent troops to destroy the Ice Phoenix dynasty. In the end, the Ice Phoenix Emperor was personally killed by the leader of the Shenyu dynasty. End of chapter. Chapter 1137 The Escape of Emperor Ning'an. The Ice Phoenix dynasty is in front of the Ning'an dynasty, and the Ning'an dynasty is also on the path that the Shenyu dynasty must pass. Without the Ice Phoenix dynasty, the Ning'an dynasty will have to face the Shenyu dynasty's military front. Of course, this is not the most important thing. The most important thing was that the soldiers brought back information that made Emperor Ning'an feel like the sky was falling. The new Shenyu Emperor will not accept any surrender. This information was a heavy blow to Emperor Ning'an. This information means that the Shenyu dynasty will definitely attack the Ning'an dynasty next, and will also massacre the entire Ning'an dynasty like they did in the Ice Phoenix dynasty. No, he can no longer sit still and wait for death. Emperor Ning'an immediately got up from the dragon throne. He mobilized the luck of the dynasty and protected all the star regions ruled by the Ning'an dynasty, trying to delay some time through this method. Then he said to the soldiers in the hall, "Evacuate gradually according to our original plan immediately." Emperor Ning'an was already ready to leave when he heard that the Great Xia Dynasty was coming. He still knew how much he weighed. The reason why he never ran away was because he was still somewhat unwilling to give up his life's hard work. Moreover, the decline in strength had a great impact on him, and he was likely to die in the catastrophe as a result. But under the current situation, if he didn't evacuate the Ning'an dynasty and escape to other places, he would be dead without waiting for the catastrophe. Soon, the entire Ning'an dynasty was in motion. All the immortal boats of the Ning'an dynasty were flying towards the star field behind. Most of the star fields in front had been blocked. Flying forward at this time was courting death. Now the only way to escape is to head towards the star field behind. Of course, not everyone is qualified to ride the ferry boat. Generally, only some relatively large forces are qualified to ride the ferry boat. And Emperor Ning'an cannot take everyone away, and his small world can only take away part of it, people. The people Emperor Ning'an took away were mainly people related to the royal family. As for the life and death of ordinary people, Emperor Ning'an cannot care about the life and death of ordinary people. He is now a clay Buddha crossing the river. He cannot save himself, so how can he care about the life and death of ordinary people? Moreover, those ordinary people have no value to him now, and they will die if they die. 1 month later, Mingxin Dynasty, Emperor Star. Emperor Mingxin is preparing for the gift ceremony, waiting for Lu Chen's arrival. He has also recently been paying attention to the progress of the Shenyu dynasty's attack ahead. When he heard that the Shenyu dynasty had invaded the Bayan star group, Emperor Mingxin was already a little panicked. He wished that Lu Chen could come to the Mingxin dynasty quickly and bring the Mingxin dynasty to the throne, incorporated into the rule of the Great Xia Dynasty. At this moment, Emperor Mingxin's body was suspended above the Emperor Star, quietly looking at the white rock starfield cluster in the distance. From a distance, the entire white rock star cluster still seems to be exactly the same as before, but Emperor Mingxin knows very well that today's white rock star cluster has become a hell on earth. At this moment, a quasi-emperor general suddenly appeared next to Emperor Mingxin. "Your Majesty," hundreds of ferry boats suddenly appeared in the Shanyan star territory. They seem to be trying to break into the Shanyan Star territory. Upon hearing this, Emperor Mingxin frowned. He quickly asked, "Is it the Shenyu dynasty's army that has arrived?" According to the advancing speed of the Shenyu dynasty, there is a high possibility that those immortal boats are the army of the Shenyu dynasty. The quasi-emperor said, "Maybe not. The flags hanging on the other side's immortal boat are not the flags of the Shenyu dynasty. Looking at the boat flags, they are more like the immortal boats of the Ning'an dynasty. And according to the observations of my subordinates, not only the Ning'an dynasty, but also other dynasties fled the immortal boat." After hearing this answer, Emperor Mingxin relaxed a little, as long as the army of Shenyu dynasty did not arrive. As for the immortal boats of other dynasties escaping, he had long expected that such a day would come. The Shenyu dynasty attacked in this direction. Their immortal boats blocked most of the surrounding star fields. The people from the previous dynasties wanted to escape. You can only escape in this direction. This is enough to show how terrifying the strength of the Shenyu dynasty is. The universe is so big, and the Shenyu dynasty can actually block a large area of stars, ensuring that those dynasties that want to escape can only escape in one direction. This is not an ordinary superpower. Can be done. Even the top forces in the universe at the Holy Land level may not be able to do this. Seeing Emperor Mingxin's silence, the quasi-emperor beside him asked again, "Your Majesty, what should we do now? If hundreds of immortal boats break in, I'm afraid. There must be many fleeing emperors in so many ferry boats. If those emperors want to plunder the luck of the Ning'an dynasty to restore their strength, they don't have to wait for the arrival of the Shenyu dynasty's army. The Ning'an dynasty will be destroyed. This kind of thing is too common in this world of the weak and the strong. War usually does not affect one dynasty. Even a war between two dynasties will affect countless surrounding dynasties." The error-free version is being read. First release of this novel. Especially when there is a war between some powerful dynasties, the weaker party is likely to attack other weak dynasties during the escape process, use the dynasty luck of other dynasties to restore strength, and then support war with war, fighting and escaping at the same time. Emperor Ning'an thought for a while, and then said, "I will go and see for myself." After the words fell, the figure of Emperor Mingxin disappeared on the spot. When he appeared again, he had already arrived at the edge of Shanyan Star region. He was suspended in the void, quietly looking at the dense stars in the distance. Emperor Mingxin used his divine sense to explore. Those star points were all immortal boats, and most of them came from Ning'an dynasty. There were immortal boats from other dynasties, but not many. Soon, those immortal boats arrived at Shanyan Star region. Seeing that there was a great emperor guarding the edge of Shanyan Star region, Emperor Ning'an immediately sent a voice message and said, "The army of Shenyu dynasty has already invaded Bayan Star region. Why are you waiting here instead of running away?" Hearing this, Emperor Mingxin said vigilantly, "Don't bother Daoyu to worry about it." "Daoyu, why did you come to my Mingxin dynasty?" Emperor Ning'an appeared here for two reasons. One was to borrow the road, and the other was to plunder the dynasty luck of Mingxin dynasty and then restore strength. If they were just passing through, it would not be impossible to let them pass directly. When Emperor Mingxin used his divine sense to scan the immortal boats, he found that there were several emperors in those immortal boats. Emperor Mingxin had no chance of winning against so many emperors. But if these people came to plunder the fortune of the Mingxin dynasty, then even if he was alone, he had to defend the Mingxin dynasty with his life and wait for Lu Chen to come. He had already surrendered to the Great Xia Dynasty, and the current Mingxin dynasty was no longer his in a strict sense. If he ran away, Lu Chen would probably hold him accountable. End of this chapter. Chapter 1138 Emperor Ning'an takes action. Hearing the question from Emperor Mingxin, Emperor Ning'an couldn't help but want to laugh. It was hard for him to imagine that an emperor would ask such a stupid question at this time. Emperor Ning'an then sneered and said, "The army of the Shenyu dynasty has blocked the surrounding star fields. This direction is the only escape route. Why do you think we are here? Of course, in order to speed up the escape from the encirclement of the Shenyu dynasty, we need some dynasty luck to restore our strength. I would like to trouble you to do me a small favor and take the initiative to hand over the dynasty luck of your dynasty. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Method G. Situation. Hearing this, Emperor Mingxin's face darkened. As he expected, these people were not just here to borrow the road. This is a world where the strong prey on the weak. There are several emperors in these immortal boats. Now that they see the fat piece of meat of Mingxin dynasty right in front of them, how could they honestly pass through and do nothing? Emperor Mingxin chuckled and said, now Mingxin dynasty has surrendered to Xia Dynasty. If you want the dynasty fortune of Mingxin dynasty, I am afraid it will not be as you wish. Hearing this, Emperor Ningen didn't care at all and didn't take it to heart. Xia Dynasty? What kind of chicken dynasty is that? He has never heard of it. Emperor Ningen said at this time, since you insist on not accepting the toast and drinking the penalty wine, don't blame me for waiting. As soon as Emperor Ningen finished speaking, 5 emperors, auras descended on this star field. Feeling the auras of these emperors, Emperor Mingxin's face changed slightly. The strength of these emperors is above him. It is difficult for him to stop their attack alone, and he doesn't know how long he can delay. Emperor Mingxin immediately tried to contact Lu Chen through the soul seal deep in his soul. Your Majesty, an emperor has invaded the Mingxin dynasty. After calling several times in a row, Emperor Mingxin did not receive a response, which made Emperor Mingxin feel hopeless. This is troublesome. I am afraid that when Lu Chen arrives, the entire Mingxin dynasty will have been destroyed. No matter what, let's try to hold these people back first. He now has a soul seal in his soul. Without Lu Chen's order, he can't escape. He can only bite the bullet. The next moment, Emperor Mingxin released the Emperor's Dharma image and blocked the immortal boat of Emperor Ning'an and others, pretending to be ready to die. Seeing the red halo emanating from Emperor Mingxin, Emperor Ning'an frowned and said coldly, Daoyu, why bother? The army of Shenyu dynasty will soon attack. What's the point of you guarding this dynasty? You will escape anyway, so why not just give up the luck of your dynasty? Why bother pretending to die together? At this time, Emperor Mingxin had already burned his soul. After an emperor burns his soul, his combat power will be greatly improved. Although Emperor Ning'an and his team have 5 emperors who can also kill Emperor Mingxin after his soul is burned, the battle between them may not end for a while. The most important thing is that Emperor Ning'an and his team are on the road to escape. If one of them is injured at this time, it will be even more unprofitable for them. Originally, Emperor Ning'an thought that as long as the 5 emperors released their aura at the same time, they could deter Emperor Mingxin. In their opinion, when the army of the Shenyu dynasty came, the lords of the dynasties in the nearby star fields would abandon their dynasties, and the emperor in front of them was no exception. But now it seems that they miscalculated. Emperor Mingxin said lightly, there is no point in talking more, let's do it. After Emperor Mingxin finished speaking, Emperor Ning'an and others did not take action immediately. At this time, an emperor sent a message to Emperor Ning'an and asked, Your Majesty, should we take action? Although it was not too difficult for them to join forces to deal with an emperor, they were all afraid of being injured. If this guy suddenly exploded his soul before he died, they would probably be seriously injured even if they did not die together. Being seriously injured on the way to escape was a huge blow to them. Seeing that the 5 emperors in front of him did not take action immediately, Emperor Mingxin instantly guessed their concerns. He breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he had made the right bet. Come to think of it, these emperors are the ones who abandoned their dynasties and fled. In other words, they are all cowards. How could they risk being seriously injured for the fortune of a dynasty at this time? Just when Emperor Mingxin thought that Emperor Ning'an and his men would not take action, Emperor Ning'an's Dharma image suddenly appeared in the void. Then, Emperor Ning'an sent a message to the emperors behind him, send the power to me. The 4 emperors immediately understood Emperor Ning'an's idea and then sent the power to Emperor Ning'an. Seeing this sudden scene, Emperor Mingxin was stunned for a moment. At this time, Emperor Ning'an chuckled and said, since Daoyu insists on defending this dynasty, please go on the road. Chaos Cloud Sword. The next moment, Countless giant swords appeared around Emperor Ning'an, and these giant swords shot wildly at Emperor Mingxin. Emperor Mingxin's face changed drastically. He thought he had made the right bet, but he didn't expect Emperor Ning'an to still take action. Reading the error-free version. The first release of this novel. Emperor Mingxin couldn't understand why Emperor Ning'an acted as if he didn't want to take action the moment before, but took action the next moment. In fact, Emperor Ning'an really didn't want to waste too much time here. He was also worried that if Emperor Mingxin exploded his soul, he would be injured. But he changed his mind and thought that his dynasty would be destroyed by the army of the Xia Dynasty soon. At that time, his strength would definitely drop significantly. If he didn't absorb some of the dynasty luck of other dynasties to stabilize his strength, his cultivation would drop very sharply. Then how to deal with the catastrophe in the future? Thinking of the upcoming catastrophe, Emperor Ning'an finally chose to take action. He is now at least the 6th level of the emperor. Facing a 1st or 2nd level emperor, he still has absolute pressure to crush. If his dynasty is destroyed, his realm will drop to the 3rd level of the emperor, or even to the 1st or 2nd level of the emperor. At that time, it will not be so easy for him to absorb the dynasty luck by destroying other dynasties. So while his strength is still strong, try to destroy more dynasties and try to stabilize his cultivation. Seeing that Emperor Ning'an had taken action, Emperor Mingxin had no choice but to take his magic. Cloud Sea Palm. Emperor Mingxin's Dharma image slapped forward, and a huge golden palm print appeared in the void. In an instant, countless giant swords hit the giant palm, and in just a moment, the giant palm was shot through. Emperor Mingxin's face turned pale instantly. He had already burned his soul, but he still couldn't block the opponent's move. No, it can't go on like this. The next moment, Emperor Mingxin mobilized the luck of the entire Mingxin dynasty, and a golden dragon of luck instantly appeared in front of his Dharma image. The power released by the golden dragon of luck barely blocked the flying giant swords, but Emperor Mingxin could clearly feel that the golden dragon of luck was on the verge of collapse. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 1139 Lu Chen arrives. Seeing that cracks had appeared on the body of the golden dragon of luck, and the luck had begun to overflow, Emperor Mingxin had no way to deal with it. He finally understood why the other party had to make a move. The difference in strength was not a little bit. What's more, the other party had 5 emperors. If the 5 emperors joined forces, he might have killed him before he had time to self-destruct his soul. No, this can't go on. Emperor Mingxin burned his soul again, intending to send the Dharma image directly to Emperor Ning'an and others, and self-destruct the Dharma image. But at this moment, a voice came, the Emperor of the 6th level. Interesting. Hearing this voice, Emperor Mingxin finally breathed a sigh of relief. Lu Chen came, and he was relieved. Hearing this voice, Emperor Ning'an instantly became alert. The moment the other party's voice appeared, he didn't notice it at all, and he didn't sense the existence of a strong man around him. This shows that the strength of the newcomer is likely to be above him. Of course, it was obvious that Emperor Ning'an had misjudged the situation. The cultivation level of the people who came was not as high as his. At this time, Emperor Ning'an thought that there was a strong man backing Emperor Mingxin, so he immediately stopped and looked at the void in the distance and asked, "Who are you? Do you dare to hide in the dark?" Hearing this, Lu Chen smiled faintly. The next moment, he used the Great Space Avenue, and a huge vortex appeared in the void behind Emperor Mingxin. Then, a huge ferry boat flew out of the space channel. When the Feihong ferry boat appeared, a blue barrier in the distance spread to the entire Mingxin dynasty at a speed visible to the naked eye, and Emperor Mingxin was also surrounded by the blue barrier. Seeing this blue barrier, Emperor Mingxin thought of the barrier of the Great Xia Dynasty. He felt a little puzzled. Didn't they say that this barrier would expand to the Mingxin dynasty only after they completed the ceremony? How come this blue barrier has protected the Mingxin dynasty before the main hall was built? Could it be that the barrier of Emperor Sha Tian can actually expand infinitely? Thinking of this possibility, Emperor Mingxin took a breath of cold air. If this is the case, then Emperor Sha Tian's strength is probably far from what he saw. To maintain such a formation barrier, the consumption is unknown. Emperor Ning'an looked at the blue barrier in front of him and frowned slightly. He was a 6th-level emperor and was more sensitive to the fluctuation of power. At the first glance at this barrier, he had already realized that this barrier might not be so easy to break. How could there be such a formation barrier on the edge of the universe? How could there be an emperor who could set up such a barrier? Emperor Ning'an looked at Feihong Shenzhou. Soon, Feihong Shenzhou flew out of the space channel, and Lu Chen's emperor clone appeared on the roof of the palace of Feihong Shenzhou. Emperor Ning'an made a puzzled sound. He found that the emperor on the Feihong Shenzhou seemed to be only at the first level of the emperor. He even wondered if he had seen it wrong. Then Emperor Ning'an blinked and checked again, and found that the man still had the aura of the first level of the emperor. At this time, a 3rd-level emperor next to Emperor Ning'an laughed and said, "I thought he was some powerful man, but it turned out to be just a 1st-level emperor. Do you think that we can't do anything to you with one more 1st-level emperor?" As he spoke, the emperor directly released his Dharma image, and the next moment, his Dharma image came to the blue barrier. Then, the Dharma image swung a knife. Xuanming Likong knife. The giant knife in the hand of the emperor's Dharma image exuded a thick black gas, which instantly filled the surrounding void, and then a thick knife energy slashed at the blue barrier. Just when the emperor thought he could easily kill Lu Chen, the sword he swung hit the blue barrier, and after this slash, the blue barrier was not only intact, but not even a ripple was raised. Seeing this scene, the emperor was stunned in the void. He had just used 90% of his strength, but was blocked so easily. What's the matter with this blue barrier? How could such a barrier exist in such a corner? Emperor Ning'an seemed to have thought of something. He did not rush to attack, but asked, "Who are you? Why do you want to save him?" At this point, Emperor Ning'an glanced at Emperor Mingxin. Before Lu Chen could speak, Emperor Mingxin hurriedly said to Lu Chen, "Greetings, Your Majesty." "Thank you, Your Majesty, for saving the people of the Mingxin dynasty." Hearing the words of Emperor Mingxin, Emperor Ning'an realized that the person who came should be the Great Xia Dynasty mentioned by Emperor Mingxin before. Emperor Ning'an looked at Lu Chen. How could a lord of a dynasty with only the cultivation of a 1st-level emperor be able to make another emperor pledge allegiance? This really made Emperor Ning'an a little confused. Is there something special about the other party, or is this blue barrier the greatest means of this person? Lu Chen did not answer Emperor Ning'an's question immediately, but glanced at Emperor Mingxin, and then said lightly, "You did a good job." Hearing Lu Chen's praise, Emperor Mingxin immediately said, "This is what my subordinates should do." Lu Chen turned his head to look at Emperor Ning'an, and asked with a smile, "A 6th-level emperor did not choose to protect his dynasty, but abandoned his people and ran away. Don't you feel ashamed? This work is uploaded by the editor." Emperor Ning'an snorted coldly, "It's not my turn to be lectured by a kid of the 1st level. Tell me, who are you? There can't be an emperor who is proficient in such a formation in this edge of the universe." Emperor Ning'an has already had a rough guess about Lu Chen's identity. The emperor who can come up with such a strong formation and can also arrange it must not be the emperor in the edge of the universe. Thinking of the reason why the Shenyu dynasty sent troops this time, Emperor Ning'an immediately guessed that the man in front of him should be the 9th prince of the Shenyu dynasty. Lu Chen asked back lightly, "Who am I and what does it have to do with you?" Emperor Ning'an snorted coldly, and then said, "I want to see how strong your formation is." As he spoke, the aura of Emperor Ning'an surged. Then he shouted, "Chaos Sword." Instantly, countless golden giant swords shot towards the barrier created by the fairy umbrella. The result was the same as before. After those golden giant swords hit the blue barrier, they instantly dissipated completely without any movement, just like a small stone thrown into the sea. Emperor Ning'an did not believe in evil and continued to attack, but the result was still the same. Emperor Ning'an stopped attacking at this time, and his 2 eagle eyes stared at the blue barrier. He seemed to be thinking about something. Seeing that Emperor Ning'an did not continue to attack, Lu Chen smiled and asked, "Are you ready to give up?" Emperor Ning'an laughed, and the next moment, his aura surged again. Lu Chen was stunned for a moment and found that Emperor Ning'an seemed to be emitting a faint purple flame. This is end of this chapter. Chapter 1140 The Angry Queen Rainbow. Lu Chen had not expected that Emperor Ning'an would actually start burning his soul in order to break the barrier of the fairy umbrella. However, no matter how much he burned his soul, Lu Chen was not worried that he would break the barrier of the fairy umbrella. Unless Emperor Ning'an could also take out the fairy weapon. There was no way. The fairy weapon was such an unsolvable existence in this universe. Emperor Ning'an did not say too much nonsense. His Dharma image slowly raised, and the next moment a huge sword appeared in his Dharma image's hand. The Dharma image exuded countless sword chi, and then the great Tao of sword appeared above Emperor Ning'an's Dharma image, and a huge sword stood in the void, which almost occupied half of the star field. Emperor Ning'an thought at this time that he was burning his soul and mobilizing the power of the great Tao at the same time, and he did not believe that he could not break this formation. If even he, a 6th-level emperor, could not break this barrier by burning his soul and mobilizing the power of the great Tao, then this formation might not be broken even by the 9th-level emperor. If that was the case, he could only give up. Emperor Ning'an looked at Lu Chen and said, "I don't care who you are. Even if you are the 9th prince of the Xia Dynasty, if you block my way, I will still attack you." For Emperor Ning'an, even if Lu Chen was the 9th prince of the Xia Dynasty, he was just a stray dog. Like him. The Xia Dynasty had issued a universe-level wanted order for Lu Chen and even sent a large army. Even if Lu Chen died, no one would avenge him. Emperor Ning'an even thought that if he could kill Lu Chen, maybe even if he couldn't escape, he could take out Lu Chen's body to please Emperor Shenyu. Thinking of this, Emperor Ning'an no longer hesitated. The Dharma image of Emperor Ning'an waved the golden giant sword in his hand and slowly slashed towards the blue barrier, cutting the moon and breaking the air technique. This sword made the universe shatter like glass, and countless space cracks formed around the giant sword. The next moment, the giant sword, wrapped in the power of the sword, suddenly chopped down the blue barrier. This time, it was finally not as quiet as before. There were faint ripples on the blue barrier, but that was all. There was no other movement. Emperor Ning'an soon couldn't bear the power consumption of the moon-slashing sky technique. He quickly stopped the technique and stabilized the restless spiritual power in his body. But when he saw that the blue barrier was still intact, Emperor Ning'an was immediately furious, and the spiritual power in his body became more chaotic in an instant. This was already his strongest move, and it also burned his soul. A 6th-level emperor burning his soul would probably hurt the opponent even if he faced a 9th-level emperor. However, today, facing a formation, he was helpless. What kind of formation was this? To be able to set up a formation of this strength, the opponent was really only at the 1st level of the emperor. Could it be that there was a protector behind him? Generally, people of noble status have protectors behind them. For someone like the prince of the Xia Dynasty, it is very likely that he has a protector behind him. But even if this person has a protector behind him, that protector would not be able to set up such a strong formation. An emperor who can set up such a strong formation would not be a protector for others. Seeing that Emperor Ning'an stopped, Lu Chen asked, "Your Excellency, have you calmed down now?" Emperor Ning'an snorted and laughed, with a dark face, and did not speak. The current situation is very unfavorable for them. There are pursuers behind them, and they can't get through in front. If they wait until the army of the Xia Dynasty catches up, I'm afraid they will have only one way to go. Seeing that Emperor Ning'an did not speak, Lu Chen continued, "Since you are trying to avoid the army of the Xia Dynasty, I can introduce you to a good place." Emperor Ning'an seemed to understand something, and then said in a mocking tone, "Do you want me to be loyal to you? It's ridiculous. I am also a 6th-level emperor. How can I be loyal to you, a 1st-level emperor? Don't think that I can't do anything about this formation, and I will listen to your threats." If the other party's realm is similar to his, he may still consider it, but the realm difference between the two sides is so big, how can he be loyal to a 1st-level emperor? If this gets out, he may not be able to raise his head in this universe in the future. In the eyes of Emperor Ning'an, Lu Chen is just lucky to get such a powerful formation. If it weren't for this formation, he would be nothing. Look, now he only dares to hide in the formation barrier and dares not come out. This is a world where the strong prey on the weak, and he can't surrender to someone weaker than himself. Lu Chen also expected that Emperor Ning'an would say such a thing. The emperor also has dignity, not to mention that he is a 6th-level emperor. At this moment, in the Feihong immortal boat, Tiannong Empress stared at Lu Chen's main body with anger. After she sensed that there was a 6th-level emperor outside, she wanted to get up immediately and go outside to fight with that emperor. As a result, Lu Chen's main body pulled her back tyrannically and held her down tightly, not letting her leave. This work was uploaded by the compilation. Seeing Tiannong Empress's unfriendly eyes, Lu Chen laughed and said, "That is a 6th-level emperor. Even if you master the power of killing, the gap in realm may not be made up by the power of the Great Tao." The Rainbow Queen glared at Lu Chen and said, "I have killed the 6th realm with the 1st realm in the outer realm more than once or twice, not to mention that I am now in the 3rd realm, get out of the way." The killing power of the Rainbow Queen surged, and the whole hall was filled with killing intent. Her pupils also emitted a blood-red light, and it seemed that she was about to lose control. At the same time, the Rainbow Queen frantically used the mysterious woman power. For a moment, even Lu Chen's emperor body could not bear it. Lu Chen suddenly felt a chill on his back. Hiss. Huh, now that you are pregnant, even if you really have the strength to fight the 6th realm emperor, I can't let you go out and take risks. It's useless for you to get angry with me. As soon as the voice fell, Lu Chen also used the killing power. After feeling the blood-red killing power on Lu Chen, the Rainbow Queen was slightly stunned. The next moment, she found that Lu Chen's body had actually gotten rid of her control and began to move. She had clearly locked him up with Zhan Nu Gong just now, but she soon realized that Lu Chen's strength had surpassed hers. Even if she was not Lu Chen's weapon spirit, she could not lock him up with her 3rd-level cultivation. Seeing that she had no way to deal with Lu Chen, Tiannong Empress tilted her head to one side, not looking at Lu Chen, and protested silently. Lu Chen smiled faintly, then pulled away, and grabbed Tiannong Empress's jade hand and pulled her up. Tiannong Empress asked coldly, "What do you want to do now?" Lu Chen did not say much. He turned Tiannong Empress around, hugged Tiannong Empress's soft body from behind, and then, he waved his hand, and the projection of the scene outside Feihong Shenzhou appeared in the hall. End of this chapter. Chapter 1141. This person just came out like this. When Empress Tiannong saw the scene in front of her, she still didn't understand what Lu Chen was trying to do. She was an emperor after all, and her mind could sense what was happening outside, so Lu Chen didn't need to project the outside scene in. Lu Chen hugged Empress Tiannong's belly, lay on her delicate shoulders and said, "If my 1st-level emperor clone can use the killing power to withstand the attack of Emperor Ning'an, I will let you out later." Lu Chen actually wanted to subdue Emperor Ning'an, a 6th-level emperor, more. A 6th-level emperor could solve many troubles for him in the future. But the other party was a 6th-level emperor after all, and even if his main body came out, he might not be the opponent of the other party. So Lu Chen planned to use a 1st-level emperor clone to operate the killing power to try and see if his emperor clone could withstand the attack of this 6th-level emperor. If he could block it, he would consider whether to let Empress Tiannong go out. After hearing Lu Chen's words, the heart of the Tiannong Empress moved slightly. If Lu Chen really let her go, she had a hunch that as long as she killed all those people outside, her cultivation would definitely be able to improve again. When she thought of this, the Tiannong Empress became excited. Feeling the feedback from the Tiannong Empress body, Lu Chen just smiled slightly. In the past, I always thought that the Tiannong Empress was too cold and a little unkind. Now it seems that she is also easy to understand. As long as she is asked to kill, she will be particularly excited, and the relationship between them will become closer. At this time, Lu Chen's emperor clone said to Emperor Ning'an, "You seem to have no choice now. Since you have chosen to abandon your dynasty and escape, it proves that you still want to live. Now there is only one way to live in front of you. How to choose, I believe you know it in your heart. Speaking of this, Lu Chen's emperor clone came to the blue barrier. The next moment, the blue barrier opened a hole, and then Lu Chen's emperor clone flew out of the hole. Seeing this scene, everyone was dumbfounded. This guy just came out like this. Emperor Mingxin was also confused. He saw that Lu Chen had not gone out, and thought that Lu Chen knew that even if he was an emperor who mastered the power of killing, he might not be a match for the emperor of the 6th level, so he chose to hide in the barrier. So he just went out like this now. Isn't going out like seeking death. The emperors behind Emperor Ning'an exchanged glances quickly, and before Emperor Ning'an spoke, they suddenly moved. The next moment, 4 emperors appeared around Lu Chen and surrounded him. One of the emperors laughed and said, "If you were in there, we really couldn't do anything to you, but I didn't expect you to be so stupid as to dare to run out. Since you want to die, then we will fulfill your wish." Emperor Ning'an frowned slightly. He felt something was wrong. The other party, a 1st-level emperor, first set up a formation that even he couldn't break, and now he dared to walk out of the formation directly. If he didn't have anything to rely on, would he dare to walk out directly like this? Something is wrong, it's very wrong. Just when Emperor Ning'an was thinking about whether there was any treasure on Lu Chen's body, the 4 emperors attacked Lu Chen at the same time, trying to catch Lu Chen. However, at this moment, the aura on Lu Chen's body suddenly surged, and then, countless scenes of life birth appeared in the void. Seeing this scene, the 4 emperors just showed a disdainful expression. It was just the power of the avenue. What kind of lethality could the power of the avenue released by a 1st-level emperor have? Until this time, Emperor Ning'an still didn't speak, nor did he approach Lu Chen. His brows frowned even deeper. As a 6th-level emperor, he has lived for countless years. He has seen emperors who have comprehended any avenue in the universe, and he has also felt almost all the power of the avenue. But this was the first time he saw such a great power, and he had never even heard of such a great power in the past. When the 4 emperors were about to take Lu Chen down, suddenly, the great power in the void changed, and the originally vibrant scene instantly turned into a sea of blood and corpses. Then, Lu Chen exuded a blood-red killing power. The moment they felt the killing power, the faces of the 4 emperors suddenly changed, without a trace of blood, and they fell into a stagnation for a while. When they came to their senses, everyone immediately fell into panic. The killing power. It's the killing power. How could he be an emperor who mastered the killing power? Why does such an emperor exist on the edge of the universe? The reason they fled for their lives was because a madman who mastered the killing power launched a war, forcing them to flee from their dynasty. Unexpectedly, they could actually meet the emperor who mastered the killing power on the way to escape. This can no longer be described as unlucky. This work was uploaded by the editor. But then again, this man is only at the 1st level of the Great Emperor. Even if he proves his truth through killing, the gap between their realms is here. Thinking of this, the 4 great emperors took a breath, and then they continued to attack Lu Chen. Everyone attack together, don't let him live. This is a great emperor who has the power of killing. If he escapes back into the barrier, and they don't kill him, they will be the ones to die when they meet again. If you offend such a person, you can either kill him and nip the threat in the bud, or wait for him to grow up and kill them in the future. Then the 4 great emperors used the power of the Great Tao at the same time, just to be able to wipe out Lu Chen. Lu Chen smiled faintly, and then he mobilized the power of killing and swung a sword. Ice level 8 sword. 8 sword lights burst in the universe, and the next moment, all the magic of the 4 great emperors fell apart, and had no effect on Lu Chen. Seeing this scene, the 4 great emperors were dumbfounded. They knew that the great emperors who proved their Tao by killing were powerful, but they did not expect Lu Chen to be so strong. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Do you have any other moves? If not, it's my turn to attack now." Hearing this, the 4 emperors' faces suddenly changed, and Emperor Ning'an quickly reminded them, "Retreat immediately." He felt something was wrong just now. If Lu Chen didn't have any backup plan, or if he didn't have absolute confidence, how could he get out of there? It seems that they all underestimated the strength of the emperor who mastered the power of killing. Think about it, if the emperor who proved his way by killing was not ridiculously strong, how could the Emperor Shenwu kill those top forces and make them dare not speak out? You have to know that the Emperor Shenwu was just an ordinary emperor at the beginning. He started wars everywhere, and no superpower came to stop him. This shows that perhaps no superpower dared to provoke him at the beginning. After hearing Emperor Ning'an's reminder, the four emperors woke up from their dreams and quickly retreated, trying to distance themselves from Lu Chen. End of this chapter. Chapter 1142. I never break my promise. Seeing them thinking about escaping, Lu Chen's mouth corners slightly moved up. At such a close distance, it was simply a fool's dream to want to escape. Lu Chen then condensed the killing power in his body. The next moment, the void where they were instantly turned blood red, and the nearby void turned into a sea of blood and corpses, with corpses and bones everywhere. An experienced emperor reacted instantly. Not good. This is the killing field. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Oh. Although it was his first time to fight with an emperor who mastered the killing power, he had heard of some emperors in the killing field. Everyone, attack together, or we will all die in here. At this time, Tianong Empress, who was being confronted by Lu Chen's main body in the ferry boat, saw that Lu Chen's emperor clone actually used the killing field, and she panicked instantly. This guy wants to grab the head again, and he said he would let her out. Last time, this guy wanted to kill other emperors in front of her, and now he wants to kill other emperors in front of her again. Tianong Empress immediately turned her head and looked at Lu Chen coldly. What are you doing? Leave them to me. Seeing that Tianong Empress was so panicked, afraid that she would kill those emperors, Lu Chen said with a smile, don't worry, I'm just trying the power of killing, I won't really kill them. And that 6th level emperor hasn't made a move yet. Once he makes a move, maybe my killing field will collapse. Hearing this, Tianong Empress still looked at Lu Chen with suspicion. Men's mouths are deceitful ghosts, especially the words of the man behind him, which are even more unreliable. If his words were credible, she wouldn't be pregnant with his child. She suspected that Lu Chen would kill those emperors later and then tell her something like he accidentally missed a perfunctory herself. Although she didn't believe Lu Chen in her heart, she was controlled by Lu Chen now, and she couldn't break free. When she thought that she, a great emperor who proved his way by killing, was now controlled by a man, she felt extremely humiliated. The next moment, the Tianong Queen once again frantically operated the Xuanvi Gong and continued to squeeze Lu Chen. At the same time, Lu Chen in the killing field also began to attack, but he did not use the killing power in the killing field. After the four emperors joined forces, one of the great emperors waved his palm, and a huge palm print came straight to Lu Chen. Lu Chen was not in a hurry and used the power of the avenue again. The power of the avenue of the way of creation evolved into the power of the avenue of other avenues in an instant. Seeing the black avenue power emanating from Lu Chen, the four emperors in the killing field were stunned. One of the emperors said with a puzzled look, isn't this the power of killing? Another emperor said, this is the power of death. The four emperors looked at each other. What's going on? Isn't this a great emperor who proved his way by killing? Why can he use the power of death? They have lived for hundreds of thousands of years, but this is the first time they have seen an emperor who can practice two ways at the same time. The power of death emanating from Lu Chen gathered on the sword in Lu Chen's hand in an instant, and Lu Chen slashed with the sword. Moving stars and 10,000 swords. The next moment, a huge black star appeared behind Lu Chen, and then countless black long swords formed by the power of death flew towards the emperors. The swords gathered by the power of death instantly penetrated the vision brought by the magic of the four emperors. The power of death has the ability to corrode vitality and can erode human life, but compared with the power of killing, the threat is much smaller. Most emperors can use their own spiritual power to resist the erosion of the power of death, but the power of killing is different. The power of killing directly ends the vitality of a life. Once they fail to withstand the power of killing and let the power of killing enter the soul, then they will definitely die. This is another reason why the emperors in the universe actually kill the emperors. In other words, if you are infected by the power of death, you still have a chance to survive, but if the power of killing enters your body, especially if the power of killing enters your soul, then there is a high probability that you will not be saved. The four emperors breathed a sigh of relief. Although they didn't know why Lu Chen could use the power of death, compared to the power of killing, they still had hope of survival in the face of the way of death. They might even be able to kill Lu Chen. Then, the four emperors attacked with all their strength again. As expected, they were just as they thought. Even if they were infected by Lu Chen's power of death, they could still use their spiritual power to resist the erosion of the power of death. This made the four emperors a little confused. They didn't know whether they should fight back. If the opponent could only use the power of death, it seemed that they could not threaten them. But if they fought back at this time, if the opponent suddenly used the power of killing, they would not be able to resist. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. The four emperors floated in the killing field, staring at Lu Chen with a vigilant look, but they were all attacking. At the same time, Emperor Ning'an in the outside world looked at the bloody field in front of him, and his whole face turned black. He also saw that this was the killing field. It was rumored that once you enter the killing field of Emperor Shafa, you will basically die. Emperor Ning'an then gathered the power of the sword and swung out with a sword. This work was compiled and uploaded by Moon Slashing and Air Breaking Technique. As the sword went out, the original killing domain was easily split in half. Emperor Ning'an did not expect that he could so easily split the killing domain of a killing emperor. Could it be that the four emperors have already died? Just as Emperor Ning'an was thinking this, he found that the four emperors were suspended in the void, looking at Lu Chen with a vigilant look, and did not make a move. Emperor Ning'an did not know what had just happened, and then came behind the four emperors. What happened? After the voice fell, Emperor Ning'an looked in the direction of Lu Chen. This time, Emperor Ning'an himself was stunned. I saw that the blood-red killing power emanating from Lu Chen was no longer, but the black power of death. What's going on? Isn't this man an emperor who proved his way by killing? How can he still use the power of death? Lu Chen looked directly at Emperor Ning'an. Fight with me. If you win, I can consider letting you go. Emperor Ning'an frowned, his face solemn. He did not relax his vigilance just because Lu Chen was a first-level emperor. The man in front of him was too weird, not to mention the formation that even he couldn't break. Just the fact that this person could cultivate two paths was not ordinary weird. Emperor Ning'an even doubted whether he was still in the original universe. How could there be an emperor in this world who could step on two paths? After Emperor Ning'an came to his senses, he asked, "Are you serious?" Lu Chen said, "I never break my promise." Emperor Ning'an sneered, "Do you dare to make a great oath?" Lu Chen said lightly, "I have too many paths. Which great oath do you want me to make?" As he spoke, countless great visions appeared in the void in front of Lu Chen. There is the way of life, the way of death, the way of killing, the way of the five elements. Seeing this scene, everyone present was dumbfounded. End of this chapter. Chapter 1143. How can there be people in this world who practice so many great ways together? Not to mention the people of Emperor Ning'an, even the quasi-emperors of Mingxin dynasty who came to watch the fun were stunned in the void. Emperor Mingxin also looked at the shadow of the avenue in the distance with a dull face, muttering, "How can there be people in this world who can practice so many avenues at the same time?" Emperor Mingxin suddenly felt fortunate that he had surrendered. He felt more and more that Lu Chen's identity was not just as simple as the 9th prince of Shenyu dynasty. For ordinary cultivators, even if they can peek at other avenues, they will never dare to step on two avenues. The power of the avenues will collide with each other in the body. Once they practice two avenues at the same time, the end is death. And Lu Chen not only practiced two avenues at the same time, he directly stepped on countless avenues and did not die. From this point of view alone, even if he only has the cultivation of the first level of the emperor, his strength is definitely far beyond the first level of the emperor. The soul can withstand the collision of all the power of the avenues. With this soul strength, I am afraid that even the strong men of the 9th level of the Emperor cannot reach it. After nearly half an hour, the talents present gradually reacted. Lu Chen did not wake them up. He just quietly floated in the void, waiting for them to wake up. After Emperor Ning'an came to his senses, he still did not immediately agree to Lu Chen's request. The man in front of him was too weird. Although he was only at the 1st level of the Emperor, he could control all the power of the avenue. If the two of them really started fighting, he might not be the opponent. He admitted that he was already scared in his heart. If he was not scared, he would not abandon his dynasty and run away. Emperor Ning'an stared at Lu Chen and asked, "Who are you?" Lu Chen said, "It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is whether you want a chance to live." Lu Chen's idea was that he would fight with Emperor Ning'an to test the maximum destructive power of the killing power. If his Emperor clone could withstand the sword power of Emperor Ning'an, he would let Empress Tianong come out later. As for what he said about letting Emperor Ning'an go, he did not lie. He did let Emperor Ning'an go. However, it was none of his business if Empress Tianong wanted to kill him. He was not Empress Tianong and could not decide Empress Tianong's thoughts. However, what Lu Chen did not expect was that his words, "Do you want a chance to live?" became another meaning in Emperor Ning'an's ears. Now Lu Chen showed his strength again and asked himself if he wanted a chance to live. To Emperor Ning'an, this was asking him if he wanted to be loyal to him. Emperor Ning'an fell silent again. At this time, the 4 emperors next to Emperor Ning'an also fell silent. The whole void was extremely silent, with only some world fragments and meteorites floating aimlessly. Lu Chen was speechless. "It's just a fight, why do you have to think about it for so long?" A 6th level emperor, facing the provocation of a 1st level emperor, actually had to think for so long. This 6th level emperor can no longer be described as cowardly. Could it be that he was scared after seeing me release so many great visions? Lu Chen asked again, "I will ask you one last question, you." Before Lu Chen finished speaking, Emperor Ning'an suddenly said, "Okay, I am willing to be loyal to you." Lu Chen's brain was slightly startled, and the Tianong Empress, who was being beaten by Lu Chen's main body in the Feihong immortal boat, was also stunned after hearing this. Then, the killing power of the Tianong Empress could not stop surging, and in a moment, her killing power overflowed from the hull of the Feihong immortal boat. Seeing the killing power emanating from the Feihong immortal boat, Emperor Ning'an was shocked again. There was actually another emperor who proved his way by killing. There are 2 emperors who proved their way by killing in a star field at the edge of the universe. This is too magical. It's simply unheard of. A drop of sweat appeared on Emperor Ning'an's forehead. Fortunately, he had chosen to be loyal to the person in front of him, otherwise they would be in danger today. It is estimated that the Great Emperor of Killing in the immortal boat is the real backup of the man in front of him. Once they really start fighting, the Great Emperor of Killing in the immortal boat will take action, and this day next year will be their Memorial Day. In the Feihong immortal boat, the eyes of the Tianong Empress emitting blood-red lights stared straight at Lu Chen. "Is this what you said about letting me go out?" The Tianong Empress is not a fool. The other party has chosen to surrender. Lu Chen can't let him kill them. That is a 6th level emperor. How could Lu Chen allow himself to kill a 6th level emperor? Facing the questioning of the Tianong Empress, Lu Chen seemed a little embarrassed. He did think about letting the Tianong Empress go out to deal with these people. He thought that the emperor of the 6th level would have some backbone no matter what, and would not surrender easily, not to mention that he was still a 1st level emperor. As long as he could stop the attack of Emperor Ning'an, he would let the Tianong Empress go out. Who would have thought that Emperor Ning'an would surrender directly? Lu Chen smiled awkwardly, then said, "I just wanted to see if my clone could fight against the Emperor of the 6th level, but I didn't expect him to choose to be loyal to me. I can't blame me for that. He has already chosen to surrender to me, you can't kill them." The Rainbow Queen didn't say anything, but turned her head and looked at Lu Chen coldly. Being stared at by the blood-red eyes of the Rainbow Queen, Lu Chen felt a little numb on his back. The original text is in the 6 number 9 at book per bar. This look is so powerful. At the same time, outside the Feihong immortal boat, the clone of Emperor Lu Chen glanced at Emperor Ning'an and others, and a smile like spring breeze appeared on his face. You made the right choice. However, not everyone can be loyal to me. Hearing this, Emperor Ning'an and others felt nervous. They couldn't help but wonder if this guy didn't intend to let them go. Before, there were emperors who surrendered to Emperor Shenyu, but Emperor Shenwu not only did not accept their surrender, but also directly destroyed their dynasty. In the eyes of the emperor who proved his way by killing, it might be more in his interest to turn these emperors into corpses on his way to prove his way than to accept their surrender. Thinking of this possibility, Emperor Ning'an and others became alert instantly and were ready to escape at any time. The person in front of them was already weird enough, but there was also an Emperor Shafa on the immortal boat in the distance. Once the other party took action, they would never be able to fight him head-on. Seeing the nervous look on the faces of Emperor Ning'an and others, Lu Chen knew that they had misunderstood, so he continued, "Relax your minds and don't resist. I need to take some protective measures." Protective measures? What means? Emperor Ning'an and others were a little puzzled. Generally speaking, the emperor cannot be controlled, and they have never heard of who controlled the emperor. After thinking for a while, Emperor Ning'an finally decided to listen to Lu Chen. Okay. As soon as the voice fell, Emperor Ning'an and the other 4 emperors relaxed their minds. Lu Chen immediately performed the soul control technique. The next moment, 5 soul seals instantly entered the souls of the 5 emperors. Chapter 1144. You win this time. When Emperor Ning'an and others noticed that the soul mark appeared on the soul, they were all stunned. They thought Lu Chen was just leaving a tracking mark on their bodies to prevent them from betraying and running away. As a result, what he left behind turned out to be a mark that could control the emperor's soul. How could there be a mark in this world that could control the soul of the great emperor? Why have they never heard of it? They soon felt relieved. They had never seen this formation before, and they had also never seen someone who could practice so many avenues. Therefore, the emergence of a method that could control the soul of the emperor seemed very reasonable in front of this person. Taiwan Novel Network. In an instant, Emperor Ning'an felt a trace of regret in his heart. He had boarded a pirate ship. He could feel that with this soul mark deep in his soul, Lu Chen wanted him to die in an instant. The most important thing is that this soul mark will always affect them, preventing them from making any betrayal. It is equivalent to saying that they have now become Lu Chen's slaves. Seeing the dull expressions on the faces of Emperor Ning'an and others, Lu Chen said calmly, "From today on, you are members of the Great Xia Dynasty. You only need to call me Emperor Xia. Tell me about the situation of the White Rock Starfield group." After hearing these words, the eyes of Emperor Ning'an and others, who were immersed in regret, twitched slightly, and then slowly grew bigger, almost bulging out. Etc. What to call him? Emperor Xia, Emperor of Heaven. Are you kidding me? Is this person the Emperor of Heaven? When did the Emperor of Heaven appear in this universe? Everyone wants to take that step, but so far in this era, they have never heard of the Emperor of Heaven appearing in this universe. And according to some records from the ancient era, when someone in the universe takes that step and becomes the Emperor of Heaven, all the great emperors can feel the power of the Emperor of Heaven. They have lived for so many years and have never felt the power of the Emperor of Heaven. Fake. He should just proclaim himself Emperor of Heaven. But then again, this man actually dares to proclaim himself Emperor of Heaven. He doesn't want his life. It stands to reason that if one dares to claim to be Emperor of Heaven, if his realm has not reached that of Emperor of Heaven, Heaven will definitely punish him. Why is this person fine? Is it possible that he is really the Emperor of Heaven? Seeing Emperor Ning'an and others looking at him dumbfounded, Lu Chen asked, "What's wrong? Is it possible that your dynasty was destroyed and it hit you hard, and you don't want to recall what happened?" Everyone reacted instantly, and Emperor Ning'an said quickly, No, the army of the Shenyu dynasty only destroyed part of the dynasty in the Bayan Star region. The Ning'an dynasty that I founded has not been destroyed yet." Upon hearing this, Lu Chen said quickly, "Take me to your dynasty immediately." Emperor Ning'an was stunned again. They finally escaped, and Lu Chen actually asked him to go back now. What to do when you go back? Go back and die. Seeing Emperor Ning'an's unwilling expression, Lu Chen said, as long as the Ning'an dynasty is brought under the rule of the Great Xia Dynasty, the formation I have deployed will be able to protect the star field ruled by the Ning'an dynasty. Emperor Ning'an said, Your Majesty, I admit that this formation of yours is difficult to break, but there are great emperors in the 9th level of Shenyu dynasty. I'm afraid this formation of yours. Lu Chen said calmly, I forgot to mention that this formation can withstand all attacks below the Emperor of Heaven. Hiss. As soon as these words came out, everyone present took a breath. Resist all attacks below the Emperor of Heaven. Real or fake? Is there such a powerful formation in this universe? Etc. Although the formation is powerful, it must be arranged by a stronger formation master. If Lu Chen can arrange this formation, doesn't it mean that he is really likely to be the Emperor of Heaven? Thinking of this possibility, Emperor Ning'an and others became excited. If it was really the Emperor of Heaven, their loyalty to the Emperor would be bad luck for them. After Emperor Ning'an came to his senses, he immediately said, Your Majesty, I will take you to the Ning'an dynasty right now. Having said this, Emperor Ning'an was ready to use space movement to bring Lu Chen to the Ning'an dynasty. Lu Chen said instead, Don't worry, just use your clone to take me there. He doesn't know much about the situation of the White Rock Star Group now. If they just arrive at the White Rock Star Group and the Shenyu dynasty's army happens to arrive, it will be troublesome. His emperor's clone is just a clone, and even if he dies, nothing will happen. However, Emperor Ning'an is a 6th level emperor. If he says that something happened, then his losses will be great. After finally recruiting a subordinate of the 6th level, we can't let him fall like this. After hearing Lu Chen's words, Emperor Ning'an immediately said, Okay, I understand. Immediately afterwards, Emperor Ning'an separated a ray of divine consciousness and created a clone. Lu Chen took a step forward and came to the clone of Emperor Ning'an. Let's go. Yes, Your Majesty. Read the original article in Lu number 9 at /?! The next moment, the clone of Emperor Ning'an took Lu Chen's clone to the Ning'an dynasty. After Lu Chen's emperor clone left, an emperor next to Emperor Ning'an looked at Emperor Ning'an. What are we going to do now? Although they had all surrendered to the Great Xia Dynasty, that Xia Emperor just ran away without giving them any orders, and they didn't know what they should do now. Just when the few of them looked at me and I looked at you, the killing power released by the Feihong immortal boat became even more violent, and the surrounding void was raging with the killing power. Feeling this violent killing power, Emperor Mingxin and the quasi-emperors watching the show were frightened and retreated quickly. Emperor Ning'an and others who were outside the barrier were also confused when they saw this scene, not knowing what happened. They have all surrendered. The killing emperor on Lu Chen's side should not take action against them. If this is the case, then why does he still release the killing power, and he seems to be very angry. Inside the Feihong ferry boat, Lu Chen hugged Empress Tianong's soft body, rested his head on Empress Tianong's shoulder, and breathed heavily. After a while, he said, When the Shenyu dynasty's army comes, you can take action. Hearing this, Empress Tianong snorted coldly, You think I am a fool? When the time comes, you will definitely say that there is a child in my belly. For the safety of the child, it is better not to go out. Empress Tianong has seen through Lu Chen. This guy just doesn't want her to kill everyone. Empress Tianong suddenly thought of something, and then asked, Are you afraid that I will become stronger than you and escape your control? Lu Chen smiled faintly, straightened up, and gently touched Empress Tianong's body. You are all mine, and you have children. How can I be afraid of you becoming stronger? Okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's stop here for cultivation. Empress Tianong sneered and said, Isn't this okay? You are nothing more than that. Hearing Empress Tianong's provocative words, Lu Chen's inner anger was ignited again, but he quickly calmed down. You're right, you won this time. End of chapter. Chapter 1145. Where is that thing hidden? As an empress, she has to win a few times to give her some confidence. If she loses every day, she will quit in the future. After hearing Lu Chen's perfunctory words, Tianong Empress was even more upset. What does "you win this time" mean? Could it be that she has never won before? To be honest, it seems that she has never won before, especially after Lu Chen's realm surpassed hers. She could only let Lu Chen manipulate her. In the past, Lu Chen had to look at her face when playing with her, but now Lu Chen plays with her without her consent and does whatever he wants. From this point of view, she has never won, she is numb to losing. If she continues to lose like this, sooner or later Lu Chen will go astray. She knows Lu Chen, and Lu Chen is most obsessed with this kind of thing. Although she didn't feel very happy, Tianong Empress didn't continue to pester her. There is a long way to go. If she finds a chance to turn over one day, she will let Lu Chen know what it means to be a killer emperor. After Lu Chen pulled away, he waved his sleeves, and the next moment, a white and gold dragon robe appeared on Lu Chen's body. Then Lu Chen appeared in the void. When Emperor Ning'an and others saw Lu Chen again, they all felt that they were dazzled. Your Majesty, Emperor Ning'an asked puzzledly, didn't you go to the Ning'an dynasty with my clone? At this point, Emperor Ning'an subconsciously used his spiritual sense to connect with the clone, and found that Lu Chen was right beside him. Tu Sha Tiandi. No, the one just now should be a clone. But the Sha Tiandi they sensed before was obviously a complete Sha Tiandi, with no defects in his soul. How could it be a clone? It is still easy to identify whether an emperor is a clone. Lu Chen said calmly, I have many clones, so don't be surprised. Speaking of this, Lu Chen raised his hand, and the barrier created by the fairy umbrella immediately expanded, covering Emperor Ning'an and the ferry boats brought by Emperor Ning'an. Then Lu Chen said, okay, let's stop here today. You will stay in the Mingxin dynasty first. After the Ning'an dynasty is incorporated into the rule of the Xia Dynasty, you can return to the Ning'an dynasty. The rule of the Xia Dynasty must be continuously expanded. After defeating the army of the Shenyu Dynasty, these emperors can be responsible for external expansion. Then Lu Chen's main body took Emperor Mingxin back to the imperial star of the Mingxin dynasty and officially incorporated the entire Mingxin dynasty into the rule of the Xia Dynasty. After absorbing the dynasty luck of the Mingxin dynasty, the luck of the Xia Dynasty also became stronger. Emperor Mingxin originally thought that his strength would drop significantly after losing the luck of the Mingxin dynasty. However, after losing the luck of the Mingxin dynasty, his realm not only did not drop, but also broke through. Seeing that Emperor Mingxin's realm not only did not drop after giving up the position of the lord of the dynasty, but also broke through, Emperor Ning'an and others were very excited. If the Ning'an dynasty was also included in the rule of the Xia Dynasty, would it be possible for them to break through? When he thought of this possibility, Emperor Ning'an's main body hurriedly communicated with his clone with his spiritual consciousness, asking the clone to speed up and take Lu Chen's emperor clone to the Ning'an dynasty. At the same time, Shenyu Dynasty, Emperor Star. On the heavenly palace, Lu Yangwu looked at the image in the projection and asked the emperor next to him, when can we completely occupy the Bian Star region? The emperor next to Lu Yangwu replied, Your Majesty, General Lei Ting's army has been dispatched, and the army of the Shenyu dynasty will be able to completely occupy the Bian Star region. Hearing this, Lu Yangwu smiled. After conquering the Bian Star region, they will enter the real edge of the universe, and the dynasties behind are all low-level dynasties. The lords of those dynasties probably know that the Bian Star region dynasty has been destroyed and will immediately choose to escape. At that time, the army of the Shenyu dynasty will not encounter any obstacles. Thinking of this, Lu Yangwu turned off the projection screen and stopped thinking about the front. At this time, Lu Yangwu thought of something and said with a dark face, Bring up the Quasi-Emperor Dongsheng. Soon, several shadow guards brought a man who was tied with fairy gold chains all over his body to Lu Yangwu. The man was disheveled, bloodied, and covered in scars. The fairy gold chain went through his body, completely sealing his cultivation. The shadow guard let go and the man fell to the ground. Seeing the man on the ground, Lu Yangwu asked coldly, Are you really not going to say anything? The man lying on the ground spat and said, I have nothing to say to a beast like you who killed his father to seize the throne. Hearing this, Liu Yanghua was immediately furious, and the emperor's pressure on his body was instantly released, pressing the man who was already lying on the ground to spit out blood. The original text is available at Lu number 9 at Shu Bar. Liu Yanghua continued, I am now the ruler of the Shenyu dynasty. You need to understand the situation. Dongsheng quasi-emperor spat out the blood in his mouth again, and said with difficulty with all his strength, the beast who killed the king and seized the throne will be taken away by the heaven sooner or later. How long do you think you can laugh? Seeing that Dongsheng quasi-emperor was still unwilling to speak, Liu Yanghua stopped asking. His patience had been completely exhausted. Then Liu Yanghua sent a message to the emperor of Tianji Tower. After a while, 3 emperors from the Tianji Tower appeared beside the quasi-emperor Dongsheng. Liu Yanghua said indifferently, let's do it. At Liu Yanghua's command, the 3 emperors immediately took action. The next moment, a circular formation appeared under the feet of the quasi-emperor Dongsheng. Seeing this formation, the quasi-emperor Dongsheng's face changed drastically. He recognized it as a soul-sucking formation at a glance. Liu Yanghua snorted coldly and said, you are just a quasi-emperor. Do you really think I can't do anything to you? Liu Yanghua did not use the soul-sucking formation to search the soul of the quasi-emperor Dongsheng at the beginning, mainly because he was worried that the soul-sucking formation would damage the soul of the quasi-emperor Dongsheng and thus miss some memories. But the quasi-emperor Dongsheng was so stubborn and didn't say anything, so he had to use the soul-sucking formation right away. When the 3 quasi-emperors of the Tianji Tower set up the soul-sucking formation, the soul of the quasi-emperor Dongsheng was pulled out of his body in a moment. Then, the soul-sucking array grew countless branches, which tied up the soul of the Dongsheng quasi-emperor, and then the memory of the Dongsheng quasi-emperor was replayed above his head like a slideshow. Liu Yanghua stretched out his hand and sucked with spiritual power, and the memory of the Dongsheng quasi-emperor poured into his mind, but as he thought, the soul-sucking array did cause some memory loss of the Dongsheng quasi-emperor. This made Liu Yanghua's face even uglier. He said to himself, where is that thing hidden? Liu Yanghua has always known that the Shenwu emperor has a treasure in his hand that can control other people's lives and change their fate. However, after he killed the Shenwu emperor, he did not find this treasure from the Shenwu emperor. He suspected that the Shenwu emperor was afraid of any accidents before taking over his body, so he hid the Tianyan stone in advance. Dongsheng quasi-emperor was the guard who had always been with Emperor Shenwu. He was the most likely to know the location of the Tianyan stone, so Liu Yanghua asked him to tell Emperor Shenwu where he had hidden the Tianyan stone. However, Dongsheng quasi-emperor was a stubborn person and refused to tell anything. End of this chapter. Chapter 1146. Are you talking about Tianji girl? At this time, Liu Yanghua glanced at the dead quasi-emperor Dongsheng again, and thought in his mind whether it was the soul-capturing array that damaged quasi-emperor Dongsheng's memory, so there was no information about Tianyan stone in his memory. News. Liu Yanghua became even more agitated when he thought of this possibility. Guards around the emperor like Dongsheng quasi-emperor usually had restrictions placed by Emperor Shenwu. Although the emperor of Tianji Tower forcibly broke the restriction and extracted the memory of quasi-emperor Dongsheng, the restriction probably also played a role when extracting the soul of quasi-emperor Dongsheng, destroying some key memories in advance. Liu Yanghua then waved his hand and asked someone to dispose of the body of Emperor Dongsheng. His eyes fell on a great emperor in Tianji Tower. Your Tianji Tower should be able to deduce the location of the Tianyan stone, right? Hearing this question, an emperor from Tianji Tower said, I'm afraid this won't work. We have never heard of Tianyan stone, and according to your majesty, Tianyan stone can change a person's destiny. This ability alone proves this day's stone is no ordinary treasure. A treasure like this can generally shield the secrets of heaven. It may be difficult for outsiders to calculate its location. At this point, the emperor suddenly thought of something, and then continued, there is someone who can probably calculate the location of Tianyan stone, but... Hearing this, Liu Yanghua quickly asked, who is it? Bring him to me immediately. The great emperor in the Tianji Tower looked bitter, and then said, I'm afraid your majesty will have to go there personally. Lu Yangwu instantly guessed who it was. Are you talking about Tianji Nu? The emperor said, yes, there is nothing in this universe that Tianji Nu doesn't know. As long as she is willing to help His Majesty deduce the location of the Tianyan stone, she will definitely be able to deduce it. Lu Yangwu thought for a while. Now that Tianji Nu has fallen out with Tianji Tower, if he runs to Tianji Nu for help. Let's not talk about whether Tianji Nu is willing to help him. Even if Tianji Nu is willing to help him, if he asks her for help, he will probably offend the owner of Tianji building. His current status depends on the support of Tianji Tower. He must not be confused at this time. Even if he can't find Tianyan stone, it doesn't matter. Compared to his own throne, Tianyan stone is nothing. Thinking of this, Lu Yangwu said, then forget it. Lu Yangwu did not continue to worry about the Tianyan stone. Get ready, I am going to the Bayan Starfield group in person. He wanted to see with his own eyes the destruction of Lu Chen's Great Xia Dynasty and let Lu Chen die in his hands. For some reason, his desire to kill Lu Chen became more and more profound. Even he himself couldn't understand why. To him, Lu Chen was just a loser and there was no need for him to pay so much attention to him. But when he was practicing recently, he always felt that Lu Chen might bring him some trouble. This feeling made him have more and more murderous intention towards Lu Chen. Lu Yangwu even doubted whether he was practicing obsessed. But no matter what, as long as Lu Chen dies, it will all be over. Ning'an Dynasty, Wuyang Star Territory. The Thunder Emperor led his legion and looked at the star field in the distance, but did not launch an attack for a long time. He also recently discovered that although he took the initiative to seek refuge with Lu Yangwu did not seem to regard him as one of his own. Lu Yangwu let him do any dirty work, and even let him do some cleaning up the demons. Because of this, the number of his legions is getting smaller and smaller. This time Lu Yangwu asked him to take the lead again, and the number of his legions was once again greatly consumed. If this continues, the legions he leads will become one of the top 10 in the Shenyu dynasty. The smallest legion among the legions. Obviously, Lu Yangwu didn't trust him and wanted to consume the strength of his legion and make him weaker. At this time, a quasi-emperor deputy general came to the side of the Thunder Emperor. General, when will we launch an attack? The Thunder Emperor said, wait a little longer until all those emperors have escaped. For the Thunder Emperor, this is the best way to reduce casualties and preserve strength. As long as the dynasty leaders of those dynasties escape, they will be like entering uninhabited territory, and no one will resist. In this way, you won't lose too much combat power. As for those great emperors, they just ran away. He was not an emperor who proved his way through killing, so he had no interest in the lives of those great emperors. Upon hearing this, the deputy general quickly reminded, His Majesty has a decree for us to occupy all the dynasties in the White Rock Star Group as soon as possible. He is already on his way here. As the deputy general of the Thunder Emperor, he naturally knows what the Thunder Emperor is thinking, but after all, the Shenyu Emperor gave the order. If they did not occupy the entire White Rock Star Group before the arrival of the Shenyu Emperor, they would probably make the Shenyu Emperor unhappy, willingly. Originally, Emperor Thunder had a very good relationship with Lu Chen before, and now he is sending troops to get rid of Lu Chen. If Emperor Thunder delays time on the battlefield, it may arouse Emperor Shenyu's suspicion. Upon hearing this, Emperor Thunder frowned. Emperor Shenyu wanted to come to the front line in person. What is he here to do? Could it be that he was worried that he would let Lu Chen go, so he came to work as a supervisor? Sure enough, Emperor Shenyu never truly trusted him. Read the original article in Lu number 9 at /?! The Thunder Emperor became angry when he thought of being asked to do this and that these days. If Lu Chen had been the emperor of the Shenyu dynasty, he might not have been so tired. The catastrophe was about to come. Those emperors who had a good relationship with Lu Yangwu not only obtained various cultivation resources, but Lu Yangwu also asked them to retreat and break through. Just when Emperor Lei Ting was complaining in his heart, suddenly, a deputy general ran over and said, General, there is something wrong with the Ning'an dynasty. Emperor Lei Ting asked puzzledly, "What's going on?" As soon as the voice fell, Emperor Lei Ting found that there was a blue barrier in the distance that was rapidly expanding towards them. Several quasi-emperors in the Legion wanted to stop the blue barrier, but after all the attacks, the blue barrier still existed. Emperor Lei Ting frowned slightly. What kind of formation barrier was this? It was so strong. So many quasi-emperors attacked at the same time, but it didn't affect the barrier at all. Emperor Lei Ting then came to the blue barrier. At this time, the blue barrier did not continue to expand and stopped in front of Emperor Lei Ting's legion. Emperor Thunder said to the soldiers behind him, "Everyone retreat." As soon as the words fell, all the members of the Thunder Legion retreated, leaving only Emperor Thunder alone in front of the barrier. The next moment, Emperor Thunder released his Dharma image. The moment the Dharma image appeared, the void was full of thick purple lightning. At this time, Emperor Thunder's Dharma image punched out. Qilin Fist. In an instant, a purple Qilin with arcs jumping on its body suddenly rushed out and crashed directly into the blue barrier. But the blue barrier remained unmoved. His punch did not even cause a ripple in the barrier. Chapter 1147. Are you also using killing to prove your truth? The Thunder Emperor looked at the blue barrier in front of him with confusion. Even his Qilin Fist could easily block it. This barrier might not be simple. His punch contained the power of thunder, and even a 4th-level emperor might not be able to block it. This blue barrier was punched but nothing happened. Does the dynasty at the edge of the universe also have such a powerful formation? Didn't the news he got earlier say that Emperor Ning'an and the royal family had all fled? Why is there such a barrier now? Just when the Thunder Emperor was confused about the origin of this formation, a familiar voice suddenly sounded. "General Thunder, long time no see." Hearing this voice, the Thunder Emperor was stunned for a moment, and then quickly looked up. At this moment, Lu Chen was suspended in the void on the other side of the blue barrier. The Thunder Emperor suddenly thought of something, and immediately scolded him seriously. "You traitor, you dare to come out." Lu Chen glanced at Thunder Emperor's loyalty and instantly understood what Thunder Emperor meant. Thunder Emperor actually still had 40 loyalty to him. Such a high degree of loyalty means that the Thunder Emperor probably has no intention of taking action against him, so his words probably mean to tell him to run away quickly. Lu Chen said calmly, "Okay, stop pretending, I still don't know what you think. There is nothing good about following Liu Yanghua, why not come to me?" Hearing Lu Chen's words, the Thunder Emperor and the Thunder Legion were stunned for a moment. Lu Chen was actually poaching at this time. They are the Legion of the Shenyu Dynasty. Now that the power struggle has ended, Liu Yanghua has become the Shenyu Emperor. Moreover, Liu Yanghua still proves his way through killing and practices the heaven-seizing technique. He is likely to become the strongest in the universe in the future. Emperor. Under such circumstances, how could they seek refuge with a wanted prince? But just when people were thinking this, Lu Chen suddenly released blood-red killing power. Seeing the killing power on Lu Chen, the soldiers of the Thunder Legion were stunned again. The 9th prince actually used killing to prove his Tao. This, the Thunder Emperor asked in disbelief. "Your Highness, are you also killing to prove the truth?" Lu Chen said, "Your Highness, now that I am the ancestor of the Great Xia Dynasty, you should call me Emperor Xia." This, Emperor of Heaven. Everyone looked at me, and I looked at you, and then their eyes fell on Lu Chen. It seemed that Lu Chen was joking with them from his face. Not just anyone can claim to be the Emperor of Heaven. But having said that, Lu Chen dared to call himself the Emperor of Heaven, and he also proved his way through killing. Does this mean that Lu Chen is crazier than Liu Yanghua? More ambitious? When Lu Chen was still the 9th prince of the Shenyu Dynasty, they were members of Lu Chen's faction, and they also firmly believed that Lu Chen could become the new head of the Shenyu Dynasty. Now that they were asked to take action against Lu Chen, they were indeed a little hesitant. And after seeing that Lu Chen also committed suicide to prove his truth, they suddenly seemed that this power struggle had just begun and was not over. Seeing that the Thunder Emperor was wavering, Lu Chen said directly, "I can give you some time to think about it. During this period, you can attack at will and try to break my formation." After the words fell, Lu Chen said no more. He turned around and headed to the Emperor Star of the Ning'an dynasty to receive the luck of the Ning'an dynasty. Seeing Lu Chen's leaving figure, the Thunder Emperor fell into deep thought, and he didn't know what to choose. From a personal perspective, he is definitely more willing to be on Lu Chen's side. After all, he valued Lu Chen more from the beginning. But from a rational point of view, choosing the side of Emperor Shenyu is the most correct choice. On the one hand, Emperor Shenyu has gathered more great emperors, and Emperor Shenyu also proves the Tao through killing, and he also practices the heaven-seizing technique, and his strength as the speed of improvement has probably exceeded that of Lu Chen. The most critical point is that Emperor Shenyu has the support of Tianji Tower, the top force in the universe. Unless Lu Chen can get the support of Tianji Girl, Emperor Thunder will not know what Lu Chen can do to defeat Emperor Shenyu. But after thinking about it, Emperor Thunder felt that if he continued to stay with Lu Yanghua, even if Lu Chen had died, he would probably still be sent by Lu Yanghua to perform various troublesome tasks. For Lu Yanghua, he, the great emperor, was dispensable, but for Lu Chen, if he took refuge with Lu Chen at this time, it would be a timely help. However, even if he led his army to join the dynasty founded by Lu Chen, the gap in strength between the Great Xia Dynasty and the Shenyu Dynasty was still huge, and the Great Xia Dynasty still had no chance of winning. Thinking of this, the Thunder Emperor sighed slightly. Half a month passed in a blink of an eye. The Thunder Emperor neither launched an attack nor took the initiative to tell him how to choose. He had been suspended in a daze in front of the barrier created by the fairy umbrella. Lu Chen also knew how difficult it was for the Thunder Emperor to choose the Great Xia Dynasty. He also gave the Thunder Emperor such a chance because he was one of his own in the previous life. As for other great emperors, he may not give them a chance. While the Thunder Emperor was still distracted, Lu Chen appeared in front of the Thunder Emperor again, and this time he walked directly out of the barrier and came to the Thunder Emperor. Lu Chen looked at the Thunder Emperor and asked, "How is it? Have you thought about it?" The Thunder Emperor did not answer, but asked, "What are your chances of defeating that person?" Lu Chen chuckled, and then said, "My target has never been him. My target is the entire universe, you should understand what I mean." The Thunder Emperor was stunned, the entire universe. Indeed, he called himself the Emperor of Heaven, and his vision could not be limited to the Shenyu Dynasty. The Thunder Emperor continued, "The heaven-stealing art is a bit weird. He was only a saint at the beginning, and he broke through to the Emperor in such a short time. If he can't get rid of him before he takes that step, I'm afraid there will be no chance in the future." Lu Chen said, "Even if he is the Emperor of Heaven, he can't break the formation behind me." As soon as these words came out, the Thunder Emperor opened his eyes and looked at the blue barrier behind Lu Chen in disbelief. He admitted that this blue barrier was indeed difficult to break, and he couldn't do it, but to say that the Emperor of Heaven couldn't break it, isn't this a bit exaggerated? Lu Chen saw that Emperor Lei Ting didn't believe it, so he continued, "The army of the Shenyu Dynasty will arrive soon. I won't joke with my life." Emperor Lei Ting suddenly thought of something, so he asked, "Is all this a backup plan of His Majesty Shenwu?" Emperor Shenwu's death was a bit too sudden. Emperor Lei Ting always suspected that Emperor Shenyu and Tianji Tower had joined forces to kill Emperor Shenwu, but he had no evidence. But he believed that Emperor Shenwu had been in the universe for so many years, and it was impossible that he didn't notice the conspiracy of Tianji Tower at all. It happened that Lu Chen had grown up again at this time. He suspected that Emperor Shenwu had guessed something a long time ago, and then deliberately released Lu Chen and gave him something to save his life. Lu Chen said, "It's a pity that all this has nothing to do with Emperor Shenwu." Hearing Lu Chen's answer, Emperor Lei Ting was slightly stunned. It had nothing to do with Emperor Shenwu. Then how did he succeed in killing to prove his way in such a short time? End of this chapter. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 1148 Emperor Thunder defected to the Great Xia Dynasty. Lu Yanghua was able to become an emperor in such a short time, on the one hand because he practiced the Duoshan Gong, and on the other hand because of the help of Tianji Tower. If it weren't for these 2 points, he wouldn't have been able to become an emperor so quickly. If Lu Chen could become an emperor in such a short time without help, how talented Lu Chen must be. Lu Chen said, "Now is not the time to talk about this. You will soon understand what is going on. Tell me, what do you plan to choose? Liu Yanghua is almost here, and I am here. If you attack me now, you will be a great hero at that time." The Thunder Emperor was silent for a moment, then knelt on one knee, saluted Lu Chen and said, "I am willing to follow your majesty until death and sacrifice my life for your majesty." The moment the Thunder Emperor knelt down, the Thunder Army behind the Thunder Emperor also knelt down in unison. Since their commanders had made their choices, they could only choose to follow the Thunder Emperor. The Thunder Emperor's army was created by the Thunder Emperor himself. Compared with the Shenyu dynasty, they are more loyal to the Thunder Emperor. This is why Liu Yanghua has been asking him to do this and that to consume the strength of his army. Seeing that the Thunder Emperor chose to join the Great Xia Dynasty, Lu Chen's mouth corners slightly raised. After accepting the Thunder Emperor's Thunder Army, the strength of the Great Xia Dynasty has been greatly improved. You know, there are many quasi-emperors in the army of the Shenyu dynasty. Many quasi-emperors are unable to break through to the realm of the emperor because of lack of luck, and can only become cannon fodder on the front line. After these quasi-emperors joined the Great Xia Dynasty, with the blessing of the Great Xia Dynasty's luck, it is very likely that they will directly break through to the realm of the emperor. Thinking of this, Lu Chen said to the Thunder Emperor, "Get up, you made a correct choice. In fact, what you see is not my main body, what is here is just one of my clones." Hearing this, the Thunder Emperor, who was about to get up, was stunned. Clone? How is this possible? He clearly felt that his soul was intact, how could it be a clone? But then he thought about it, he had already chosen to be loyal to the Great Xia Dynasty, it seemed that Emperor Sha Tian had no need to lie to himself at this time. If this was just a clone, then what was the strength of his original body? Could it really be the Emperor of Heaven? Thinking of this possibility, Emperor Lei Ting broke out in a cold sweat. After all, not everyone dared to call himself the Emperor of Heaven. Those who dared to call themselves the Emperor of Heaven without being the Emperor of Heaven had long been punished by the heavenly Tao, while those who called themselves the Emperor of Heaven were fine. This means that even if he was not the Emperor of Heaven in this life, he might have been the Emperor of Heaven in one of his previous lives. Now Emperor Sha Tian said that this body was just his clone, so Emperor Sha Tian's main body might really be an Emperor of Heaven. If he had not chosen to be loyal to the Great Xia Dynasty just now, he would probably be a corpse now. Thinking of this, Emperor Lei Ting breathed a sigh of relief. He felt a little fortunate that he had chosen the Great Xia Dynasty. Then it depends on how Sha Tiandi will deal with the army of Shenyu Dynasty. Lu Chen glanced at the soldiers of the Thunder Legion, and then controlled the fairy umbrella to continue to expand. When the blue barrier passed over the body of Thunder Emperor, the body of Thunder Emperor immediately splashed with arcs, and then a purple road filled with lightning appeared in front of Thunder Emperor. Thunder Emperor couldn't believe it. He had just left Shenyu Dynasty and joined Great Xia Dynasty, but he broke through directly. How could the luck of Great Xia Dynasty be so strong? As the barrier of the fairy umbrella continued to expand outward, more and more phantoms of the road appeared in the void, and soon the crowd was alarmed. Breakthrough. I actually broke through. What's going on? My Tao heart was broken, why was it suddenly repaired? Oh my god, the luck of the Great Xia Dynasty is so strong. ... The soldiers of the Thunder Legion were shocked by the strong luck of the Great Xia Dynasty. Some of them didn't want to surrender to the Great Xia Dynasty, but they had no choice. The Thunder Emperor had already pledged allegiance to the Great Xia Dynasty. If they didn't surrender to the Great Xia Dynasty, they would have no choice but to die. Some people even thought about pretending to surrender to the Great Xia Dynasty first, and then they would turn against the army of the Shenyu Dynasty after they came. However, after feeling the benefits brought to them by the strong luck of the Great Xia Dynasty, the soldiers who were still thinking about turning against the dynasty instantly lost their thoughts. Such a strong dynasty luck proves that the strength of the Great Xia Dynasty is likely to be far greater than that of the Shenyu Dynasty. It is hard to say who will win or lose in this battle between the Shenyu Dynasty and the Great Xia Dynasty. Soon, most of the quasi-emperors in the Thunder Legion broke through to the Great Emperor realm. Lu Chen investigated and found that there were a total of 20 more Great Emperors. Thunder Emperor looked at the legion behind him with a dull face. Now the overall strength of his legion is comparable to some top dynasties. This is just because they changed dynasties. It's too exaggerated. The Great Xia Dynasty can have such a strong luck. Could it be that Xia Tiandi is really the Emperor of Heaven? Thinking of this possibility, Thunder Emperor's breathing became rapid. That's the Emperor of Heaven. The top existence in the universe. He has never even heard of anyone taking that step. After seeing the great luck of the Great Xia Dynasty, no soldier in the Thunder Corps wanted to leave the Great Xia Dynasty. The high-ranking officials of the Thunder Corps, especially those emperors who relied on the luck of the Great Xia Dynasty to become emperors, have reached the point of being devoted to the Great Xia Dynasty. If it were not for the dynasty luck of the Great Xia Dynasty, many quasi-emperors would not be able to break through the realm of emperors until the day of the epic catastrophe. The fact that the Thunder Corps collectively surrendered to the Great Xia Dynasty soon spread to the ears of those people in the other Shenyu Dynasty Corps in the rear. Lingwu Star Region, Fengyu World. This is the world where the Ziji Corps is temporarily stationed. In a magnificent building, a group of people are gathered in the hall, looking at the star map in the hall, discussing something. At this moment, the voice of a quasi-emperor deputy general suddenly came from outside the hall. "General, something bad has happened." Hearing the deputy general's urgent voice, Emperor Ziji frowned. Something bad has happened. What bad things could they encounter? Could it be that other top forces have declared war on the Shenyu dynasty? This is unlikely. With the backing of Tianji Tower, which top force in the universe dares to declare war on the Shenyu dynasty? Emperor Ziji glanced at the deputy general who was reporting the intelligence, and then asked, "What happened?" The deputy general hurriedly said, "News from the front line, Emperor Lei Ting has rebelled, and he has joined the Great Xia Dynasty with the Thunder Legion." "That is Judian." "Oh, no, it's the dynasty founded by the rebel." Hearing this, everyone present, including Emperor Ziji, showed an expression of disbelief. Emperor Lei Ting defected to the Great Xia Dynasty. Is there something wrong with Emperor Lei Ting's brain that he ran to defect to the Great Xia Dynasty? End of this chapter. Chapter 1149. What did you say? Emperor Thunder joined the Great Xia Dynasty. At this moment, Emperor Ziji wondered if there was something wrong with his ears due to his recent stress. What did he hear? Search Tuacan on Google. The Thunder Emperor ran to join the Great Xia Dynasty founded by Lu Chen. After Emperor Ziji came to his senses, he once again confirmed to the deputy general who reported the news, "What did you say?" Emperor Thunder has defected to the Great Xia Dynasty. The deputy general saw that Emperor Ziji was unwilling to believe it, so he said again, "This is absolutely true. The Thunder Legion has entered the defensive formation created by the anti-thief." Emperor Ziji said, "Is it possible that he pretended to surrender? Then he took the opportunity to destroy the Great Xia Dynasty." The deputy general reminded, "General, with the strength of the Thunder Legion, if you want to destroy the Great Xia Dynasty, there is no need to use this method." Emperor Ziji raised his left hand and rubbed the center of his brow. Indeed, they were also troops from the Shenyu dynasty. Facing these low-level dynasties, there was no need to use any tricks at all, they could just push forward. In this way, there is a high probability that the Thunder Emperor really defected to the Great Xia Dynasty. But how is it possible? The Thunder Emperor is not a fool. Couldn't he see that the Great Xia Dynasty was at the end of its strength? Lu Chen failed in his fight for power and had no value anymore. Why did he go to Lu Chen to seek refuge? At this time, betraying the Shenyu Dynasty, and still standing on the opposite side of the Shenyu Dynasty, isn't that looking for death? If he joins other top forces in the universe, he may not be surprised to hear that during this period of time, the Thunder Legion has been conquering everywhere, and anyone with a discerning eye can see that Emperor Shenyu is deliberately weakening the strength of Emperor Thunder. It wouldn't be too strange if the Thunder Emperor left the Shenyu dynasty with his legion at this time, but the strange thing is, how could the Thunder Emperor run to seek refuge with a dying person? There is a problem. There must be a big problem. Emperor Ziji immediately said. Immediately send someone to confirm whether the Thunder Legion has really rebelled. In addition, report the news to His Majesty. When Emperor Ziji said this, he suddenly thought of something, and then continued, forget it, I'll confirm it myself. As soon as he finished speaking, the Ziji Emperor's body disappeared on the spot, and soon he arrived at the outskirts of the White Rock Starfield group. As a result, he used his spiritual mind to investigate and found that the Thunder Emperor and the Thunder Army in his hands had indeed disappeared, and in front of the White Rock Star group, there was a blue barrier that protected the White Rock Star group. Emperor Ziji looked a little ugly, he didn't expect this to be true. What is going on? Emperor Ziji immediately showed his Dharma form. The next moment, his Dharma form was surrounded by purple. The Ziji Emperor raised the Dharma form's giant palm, mobilized the power of the Great Tao, and blasted out with one palm. Sky Palm. A huge purple palm suddenly crashed into the barrier created by the fairy umbrella. However, the giant palm collapsed and dissipated the moment it hit the blue barrier, and even the power of the avenue contained in the giant palm collapsed. Seeing this scene, Emperor Ziji was stunned in the void. What's going on with this barrier? Even his sky palm can resist it. The Ziji Emperor did not believe in evil, so he took action again and fired several palms in succession. However, the barrier created by the fairy umbrella was still not broken. Emperor Ziji finally had no choice but to give up. He then shouted loudly to the blue barrier, "Thunder, get out of here." The Ziji Emperor's voice turned into waves of sound, causing ripples in space to spread towards the White Rock Starfield cluster. Soon the Thunder Emperor who was repairing in the White Rock Starfield group heard the voice of the Ziji Emperor. Hearing the voice of Emperor Ziji, Thunder Emperor immediately went to the star field where Emperor Ziji was. When Emperor Ziji saw Emperor Thunder, he was about to ask Emperor Thunder why he betrayed the Shenyu dynasty, but found that the pressure emanating from Emperor Thunder was already much higher than his own. Emperor Ziji was a little confused. What was going on? The Thunder Emperor betrayed the Shenyu dynasty. Logically speaking, he would no longer be blessed by the divine luck of the Shenyu dynasty, and his strength would inevitably decline to a certain extent. Why did the Thunder Emperor's realm not only not decline, but also break through? Once you reach the Great Emperor, every level you advance to is very difficult. Emperor Thunder saw Emperor Ziji looking at him blankly, and he instantly guessed what Emperor Ziji was thinking. Then he smiled and said, "Ziji, what do you want from me? We are enemies now. If you come to see me alone, aren't you afraid that Emperor Shenyu will be suspicious of you?" After hearing the words of Emperor Thunder, Emperor Ziji came back to his senses. Emperor Ziji felt that he had already guessed why Emperor Thunder wanted to betray the Shenyu dynasty. He said, "I am a little curious, why is the luck of the Great Xia Dynasty so strong?" Hearing Emperor Ziji's question, Emperor Thunder laughed, and then said, "You called me out in such a hurry just to ask this question. Shouldn't you be clamoring for me to come out at this time and get rid of me, the traitor?" Emperor Ziji's face changed instantly, and he said with a smile, "Thunder, what is our relationship? How can you think so? We are brothers who are born and die after all. Even if you really make any mistakes, I can't all take action against you." Both of them followed the path of thunder, and they came from the same sect since childhood. Compared with the relationship between them and other emperors of the Shenyu dynasty, they got along relatively well. So after hearing that Emperor Ziji had rebelled, he still thought about whether to pull him out. Of course, even if they followed the same path, the relationship between emperors was not that simple. The emperors still put their interests first. Emperor Lei Ting said immediately, "Come on, brother who has been through life and death together, I guess you have already reported my surrender to the Great Xia Dynasty." Emperor Ziji said, "Well, it's my duty. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Just tell me why you want to surrender to the Great Xia Dynasty." Emperors all put their interests first and have no feelings. In the eyes of Emperor Ziji, Emperor Lei Ting is not a fool. It is impossible for him to surrender to the Great Xia Dynasty at this time when he knew that the Great Xia Dynasty was going to be destroyed by the Shenyu Dynasty. There is only one possibility. Emperor Lei Ting has probably seen the true foundation of the Great Xia Dynasty and knows that there is a lot of uncertainty in the battle between the Great Xia Dynasty and the Shenyu Dynasty, or the Great Xia Dynasty has some trump card that can defeat the Shenyu Dynasty. Judging from the realm breakthrough of Emperor Lei Ting, it is indirectly confirmed that the luck of the Great Xia Dynasty is very strong, or the Great Xia Dynasty gave Emperor Lei Ting some extraordinary treasures to help him break through. But no matter which point, it proves that the Great Xia Dynasty where Lu Chen is located is not an ordinary dynasty, and the blue barrier in front of him is not constructed by an ordinary formation. The epical catastrophe is coming, and the emperors are thinking about breaking through to a higher realm to resist the catastrophe. Judging from the current cultivation of Emperor Ziji, it is difficult for him to make any breakthroughs until the epical catastrophe arrives. Now seeing that Emperor Lei Ting, who is also the Great Way of Thunder, has broken through, he naturally has some ideas in his heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 1150 His Majesty the Emperor of Heaven. Seeing Emperor Ziji's anxious look, Emperor Thunder raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Then he said, I am a member of the 9th Prince's faction. Now that the 9th Prince has founded the Great Xia Dynasty, I naturally stand on his side. Is this strange? Hearing Emperor Thunder's answer, Emperor Ziji laughed. Come on, you think I'm a fool, I don't know about you yet. When the Thunder Emperor stood on Lu Chen's side, it wasn't because he valued Lu Chen's talent better and believed that he would definitely become the leader of the Shenyu Dynasty in the future, so he placed his bet on Lu Chen. But now that all the royal families of the Shenyu Dynasty have been slaughtered by the Shenyu Emperor, Lu Chen has become a wanted criminal of the Shenyu Dynasty. Lu Chen has no value to the Thunder Emperor. Emperor Ziji does not think that the Thunder Emperor will be for this reason, he joined the Great Xia Dynasty. The Thunder Emperor pretended to be mysterious at this time and said, Forget it, I won't continue to whet your appetite. I will tell you directly. The reason why I took refuge in the Great Xia Dynasty is because of the Great Xia Dynasty. At this point, the Thunder Emperor paused again, and the Ziji Emperor's ears stood up. As a result, the Thunder Emperor suddenly stopped talking, and the Ziji Emperor's entire body was filled with arcs of electricity. Emperor Ziji glared at Emperor Thunder and said, Thunder, what do you mean? You should go on and say it. Emperor Thunder said with a smile, Why should I tell you? This is the secret of the Great Xia Dynasty. You are not from the Great Xia Dynasty. If I tell you, wouldn't it be tantamount to betraying Emperor Xia? Although the Thunder Emperor did not say it clearly, when the Thunder Emperor said the 3 words, Xia Tian Emperor, the Ziji Emperor was dumbfounded. Emperor Xia, Emperor of Heaven. For a moment, Emperor Ziji's mind was filled with the word, Emperor of Heaven. But he soon came to his senses. When the Emperor of Heaven appeared, the entire universe would feel the pressure of the Emperor of Heaven. If there really was a heavenly emperor in the Great Xia Dynasty, then why didn't they feel the pressure of the Emperor of Heaven? Emperor Ziji then looked at Emperor Thunder and said, Are you lying to me? The Thunder Emperor smiled and said, Lying to you? What are you lying to? I didn't say anything. Emperor Ziji fell into silence. If there really was a heavenly emperor in the Great Xia Dynasty, then the Thunder Emperor's breakthrough seemed to be able to be explained. But this is indeed a bit unthinkable. When the Emperor of Heaven appeared, there were no visions in the universe, which makes no sense at all. But having said that, if the Great Xia Dynasty did not have the Emperor of Heaven, how could the Thunder Emperor choose to join the Great Xia Dynasty without any hesitation? Even if there is no heavenly emperor in the Great Xia Dynasty, it is very likely that there is a very powerful person, otherwise the Great Xia Dynasty's luck will not be so strong that the Thunder Emperor will directly break through as soon as he joins the Great Xia Dynasty. The more Emperor Ziji thought about it, the more restless he became. Now he really wanted to enter the Great Xia Dynasty to find out. At this time, Emperor Ziji once again showed a flattering smile. Thing Lei, for the sake of our long-standing friends, can you tell the leader of your dynasty that I also want to join the Great Xia Dynasty? There is no doubt that this is a big gamble, but if the bet is right, then his realm will be broken through, and he will have a greater chance of winning when he fights the catastrophe of the era in the future. Hearing this, the Thunder Emperor smiled and said, The army of the Shenyu Dynasty will attack soon. If you join the Great Xia Dynasty at this time, you will not be afraid that the Great Xia Dynasty will be destroyed. When the time comes, the great Emperor Shenyu will send people to eradicate you. This traitor. Emperor Ziji said, you are not afraid, so what do I have to be afraid of? Besides, we are good brothers. How can we fight in the same room, don't you think so? The Thunder Emperor laughed, and then said, wait, I will tell your majesty about your matter. The Thunder Emperor finished speaking, and just as he was about to turn around and leave, he heard a voice, no need, I already know. The next moment, a space vortex appeared in the space in front of the Thunder Emperor, and Lu Chen slowly walked out of the space vortex. Seeing that the person coming was Lu Chen, Emperor Ziji was stunned for a moment. Just now Emperor Thunder said that the Great Xia Dynasty was founded by Lu Chen. He still didn't believe it. But now Lu Chen has come out, and Lu Chen also exudes the majesty of the emperor. Pressure, this shows that the Great Xia Dynasty may really have been founded by Lu Chen. Seeing Lu Chen coming in person, the Thunder Emperor quickly saluted and said, I have met His Majesty the Emperor of Heaven. Emperor of Heaven, Your Majesty, this. Emperor Ziji felt that his brain was not enough. The Xia Emperor mentioned by Emperor Thunder refers to Lu Chen. Are you kidding him? Could Lu Chen really be the Emperor of Heaven? Although Lu Chen was able to achieve enlightenment and become an emperor in such a short period of time after his reincarnation, he was somewhat talented, but compared with the real Emperor of Heaven, he was not on the same level. How could he be called the Emperor of Heaven? What is the Thunder Emperor doing? For a moment, Emperor Ziji felt like he had been deceived. He now wondered whether Emperor Thunder was also deceived by Lu Chen, so he chose to join the Great Xia Dynasty. Seeing the astonished expression on Emperor Ziji's face, Lu Chen said lightly, what? Just now you were talking about joining the Great Xia Dynasty, but when you see that I am only at the first level of the Great Emperor, you suddenly regret it. Emperor Ziji came back to his senses and said with a smile, Your Highness, what are you talking about? Since I said it, I will naturally do it. Emperor Ziji didn't believe that Emperor Lei Ting was a fool. Lu Chen said he was the Emperor of Heaven, so Emperor Lei Ting believed that Lu Chen was the Emperor of Heaven. Impossible. It is likely that Emperor Lei Ting discovered that there was something special about the Great Xia Dynasty, or that there were other powerful people in the Great Xia Dynasty. It is also possible that there is a superpower like the Tianji Tower behind the Great Xia Dynasty that secretly supports the Great Xia Dynasty. After thinking of these possibilities, Emperor Ziji became more determined in his inner thoughts. He looked at Lu Chen and asked, Your Highness, I have a question that I am curious about. I wonder if I can ask it. Lu Chen did not dwell on the problem with Emperor Ziji's title. He said directly, Go ahead, what's the problem? Emperor Ziji asked, Your Highness, dare to call yourself the Emperor of Heaven, aren't you afraid of punishment from the heavenly Tao? The Emperor of Heaven is an existence that touches the origin of the universe. If someone who is not the Emperor of Heaven dares to call himself the Emperor of Heaven, the origin of the universe will wipe this person out. Lu Chen smiled faintly, and then said directly, I am the Sha Tian Emperor. After the voice fell, there was no abnormality in the void, and Lu Chen was still floating in the void intact. Lu Chen said, Do you think the heavenly Tao has punished me? This. Emperor Ziji widened his eyes, unable to believe what he saw. What was going on with the heavenly Tao? Why didn't it punish him? Could it be that he was really the Emperor of Heaven? Emperor Ziji still couldn't believe it, and then he whispered, I am the heaven. Emperor Ziji hadn't finished speaking, and a threat of death instantly surged into his heart. The space in the void where he was also began to distort, and Emperor Ziji was sweating all over. End of this chapter. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.